G'day and welcome to Deep and Meaningfuls with Furzey. Now in this episode of the podcast, I am talking with a guy named Jaguar, and this one is a doozy. So Jag talks a lot about masculinity, what healthy and unhealthy masculinity looks like, how to restore healthy masculinity, and why masculinity kind of is on the chopping block a bit these days. We also talk about relationships, and Jag's got some great tips for understanding the opposite sex. So there's some good stuff in there for the ladies and the gents. Jag recently, his father passed away, so we talk a bit about grief and different ways to manage it and how that process plays out. We also dive into some personality disorders like narcissism, and it's quite fascinating to learn how a narcissist thinks, what's going on in their mind and what their motivations are. Now, there's going to be some stuff in this podcast that might be hard to hear, but I encourage you to listen with an open mind and an open heart, and hopefully there will be some little pearls of wisdom that you can take and apply to your own life. They certainly were for me. Here is Jaguar. Jag, thanks for being here, man.
Welcome, man. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I've been following you on Instagram for a while, and it's interesting that I didn't want to follow you because I don't know how I came across your content.
Mm-hmm.
I read something that came up, very triggering stuff, you know, on the journey of masculinity and trying to be a real adult in this world. And then I was like, no, fuck, I need this.
What post was it?
It was something about not being a child in a relationship and not allowing yourself to be your partner's another child of your partner.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a child, that's the child.
Yeah.
She doesn't need another one. She needs a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw a lot of stuff in my own behavior about how that was relevant, and it really stung.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, well, why does that sting? There's obviously I can point the finger and go, this guy's a dickhead for saying this about me, which is very childish.
Yeah.
Or I can go, maybe he's right. What is there to learn? Maybe I need more of this. So hit the follow, and here we are.
Credit to you, man. Like, you know, I do get a lot of hate online because I speak like a pretty uncomfortable truth to a lot of people. Why? How? Because I was like that. That's the thing. So I've worked through all this stuff. And one of the things is, you know, and what a great experience to sit here with you when the initial part was about you being triggered and like, fuck this guy, you know, and it's like, and now we're sitting here and I really resonate with you, even just in a short period of time that we've been sitting here. It's like, this dude's cool. I like this guy, you know, so yeah, what a journey for you to come from that to me sitting here now. So that's really cool.
Well, man, yeah, I appreciate you being here, you know, and I appreciate the work that you do, because it is, you piss a lot of people off.
Oh yeah.
And that's there's part of it that's, you know, it's good to, it's fun to just flick into the comments and go, ooh, like you'll do a post and I'll be like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at this one. And it's just a dumpster fire in there sometimes. But quite often a lot of the discussion in the comments section is just people emotionally affected by what you're saying without being able to actually refute a lot of the stuff that you talk about.
Yeah.
Now, so let's just, for people listening, you know, the kind of stuff that you talk about is essentially a lot of masculinity, right? And what real true masculinity is and what it means.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that upsetting to people?
It's a great question to start out. So the first thing we look at is, why is there an attack on masculinity? You know, and what is the antithesis to masculinity? So when I started to look into this, I look at concepts without actually looking at influence. So I break things apart using my own awareness, my own intelligence, and go, okay, what does this make? How does this make sense to me? And then I look at people that I respect or people that are big in a field, and quite often I come up with very similar concepts or similar understandings. Now, masculinity is typically associated with something that is inherently toxic. And I'm like, my statement is masculinity is fucking awesome. I think masculinity is amazing. I like being a man. I'm good at being a man. and I want to make more men good at being a man. And I became good at being a man by transcending my boy's psychology. Now, in the current state of the world, feminism has played a big part in the destruction of masculinity. Feminism is like, people think equal rights and all that. Where in the Western world do women not have the same rights as men? In fact, I would say they have more rights because they control the birthing cycle. So they can go get, an abortion and the man has no say in it. They can stop taking birth control and the man can get honey trapped in this thing that he doesn't want and doesn't know about. Where's the compensation for that? You know what I mean? But we don't want to talk about that, and these are very real things that happen. Obviously, it's not a blanket thing that all women are going to do that, etc. But one of the things I talk about a lot is women will complain about, their men taken off or whatever. I'm like, well, sleep with better men. Take some responsibility for where you sit in this. You want to be responsible for the birthing cycle. Be responsible for the man that you do that with. And some people have a bad run and there's some horrible men out there and there's a lot of men like in the manosphere and red pill, which is the opposite to, well, not the opposite, it's the masculine arm of feminism and radical feminism that hate women. So I speak to the truths in all of that because we have to sit with, like you did, an uncomfortable truth before we can start to transcend that and become better. I always say the truth hurts when you believe your own lies, right? And so when we're living a lie, that's going to break down at some point. And for do you have a daughter or a son?
A daughter.
A daughter.
Yeah.
So you want to raise a daughter and be the man for your daughter that she hopefully marries one day. So
yes.
Men and masculinity in a child's life is not a determining factor in the child's health. It's the determining factor. And so when I research things, I look at it from an objective standpoint. And I brought together, a couple of the top men's groups that are out there. And they said traits of healthy masculinity are being nurturing, being in touch with your feelings, being, anti-competition and anti-aggression. Competition and aggression are essential to masculine development for our brain development. To never speak badly about women or girls, to have female mentors, female teachers, to have female friends that you don't want to sleep with, all this sort of stuff, to be interrelated rather than individuals. And I looked at all these traits and I went and matched up with an extended year Harvard study of the typical traits of femininity and masculinity. All the traits on the what was called healthy masculinity were the same as all the traits as on the standard femininity list, the stereotypical femininity list, which is nurturing, caring, emotion-driven, in touch with your feelings, vulnerability, being interdependent and codependent on people, being relational, non-aggressive, compliant. These are not typical traits of masculinity. And so it's a really important conversation to have because if we look at in the custody section, 80 to 90% of custody is given to women. 80% of our teachers are female and 85% of therapists are female as well. Boys learn through roughhousing and movement because we operate from the cerebellum part of the brain. So we're typically one-sided in our development for communication in the brain. Women are both sides. So sitting down talking like this about your feelings and all of that, which is what's been promoted to masculinity, is a feminine way of working through things. So our boys become overly emotionally driven, in touch with their feelings, which is nothing wrong with having feelings. But if you keep exercising that muscle, if you go to the gym, you exercise your muscles, they get stronger. You exercise your emotional muscles too much, you become erratic, needy, unstable, chaotic. You can't be dependable, you become unreliable, and then you'll look to a woman to mother you as opposed you to leading a relationship where the woman feels safe and secure.
There's a lot to unpack in that. So it's about a balance. It's not about what you're saying is not men shouldn't have any relationship with their feelings. Men shouldn't have any of those anything in touch with those feminine traits.
Yeah.
But they should be in balance with their masculine traits, right?
Yeah.
So that course that you're talking about that was listing off all those things in masculinity, but they were actually feminine traits.
All of them were feminine traits.
Well, it seems very much to me like they knew that.
100%.
So the intention is to feminize men.
100%.
Yeah, right.
That's the goal.
Now, I guess I'm just trying to be diplomatic here, but is that coming from a place of someone that just believes that masculinity's gone too far and needs to be pulled back?
Well, you look at it like, what does it mean too far? We look at like the patriarchy as an example.
And also what are they observing as masculinity?
Yeah. So aggressive, competition, competitiveness, these traits, success, achievement, domination, right? These are all typically masculine traits. But if you look at the women that want to then climb the corporate ladder, they have to actually incorporate those traits in order to compete with men. And every man that I've worked with that I've helped go from boy psychology to man psychology, they don't need to incorporate some feminine traits into themselves in order to become whole.
So I guess, let's see if we can figure out what true enough masculinity and femininity looks like. Now again, this doesn't, we as males and females, we must have qualities of both, right? But what typically just are they isolated from males and females? What are masculine traits and what are feminine traits?
So I don't necessarily believe that anymore, that we have both.
Okay.
You know, I think that's I think that's a made up construct to actually make men more feminine. They can adopt feminine traits, but this feminine energy, this yin and yang, you know, in Chinese medicine, it's a philosophy, right? It's so you can have a philosophy around anything. I had a mate send me something about a snake church in New Orleans where they hold these poisonous snakes, and if the snake bites them and they die, that's God's will. You know what I mean? So that's a philosophy. So just because it's popular doesn't make it true. Look at the trans movement. Just because it's popular doesn't make it true. That stuff's a trauma response. You know, so if we're trying to get away anywhere from where we're actually at, if we look at a lot of the demonic entities throughout ancient cultures, they're all saying, I've got both male and female characteristics. So there's a pattern there. So if you're trying to incorporate this androgynous, I've got both male and female characteristics, it's all about the self, it's all about me. That's narcissistic for a start, right? That I have to work on me. It's all about me. I've got to incorporate, you know, my masculine and feminine before I can be whole. And a lot of masculinity coaches saying, you're not going to be complete until you honor your inner feminine. I'm like, get good at being a man and then go and see if that's what you actually want to do. I haven't seen that yet. That's the thing. So get good at being a man. You know, understand your masculinity, which are things like building something, purpose, drive, integrity, dignity, respect, independence, being bold, you know, being against narratives, logical, analytical, problem solving. These are typically the traits of masculine men because we think differently. We think in a vertical process where it's like we can actually weight problems based on, okay, so I've got 5 problems. What's the biggest one? I'll focus on that one, then done. Then I'll go to the next biggest, done. Next biggest, done. Women typically think horizontally.
This is funny. This is exact conversations that I have with my wife about when she's feeling really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I think we're going to explode. I've got so much stuff to do. And I go, okay, hey, babe. And this is just an instinct.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, let's make a list.
Yeah.
What do you got? Let's prioritize them. We'll knock off the first one.
Yep.
And then we'll knock off the second one. And I can't always throw that at her because at times she just needs to say how she feels.
Yep.
But there's times when she's at a breaking point where I'm like, let's fix this problem. And sorry to cut you off, but it's interesting that that's just an innate trait that I have that she doesn't have that helps get through problems in that situation, which is
and that's the gift of it. That's healthy masculinity. Like, it's women are feelings over facts and men are facts over feelings. If we start to flip that and invert that, then we've got an inverted polarity. And that's what we're seeing in the world at the moment. Men are like women and women are more like men. And so when you're sitting there, it's like, I always tell men, I'm like, go to feelings first, honor her feelings, hold her if she's really upset, and then you probably won't have to deal with the facts after that because she'll be okay. Yeah. But if, like, imagine if we were sitting down going, hey, brother, I just wanted to see how you're feeling today. You'd be like, okay. Yeah. You know, unless you're in a hard spot. But it's like, if we look at...
It's not the first thing that you think to do with your mates.
It's not. It's like, if you look at sort of like the weapon of the masculine and the feminine, the weapon of the feminine is manipulation and gossip. The weapon of the masculine is aggression, right? The gift of the feminine is intuition, and the gift of the masculine is protection. This is how it works as a combination. Like, I want my woman to be my feminine counterpart, not her coming home on a Friday after work and me sensual dancing covered in coconut oil listening to fucking Sade or something like that. She's not going to be very attracted to that. Or if shit's going down, testosterone says, I'll handle it. Estrogen says, I need help.
Okay, so do you think, so how much of a, just on a chemical aspect does hormones and testosterone have to do with this? Like
a lot.
And it seems as though, like, I can get down with what you're talking about, absolutely, about as a man and as embracing the things that are typically masculine. But if a man's real low on testosterone or his hormones are just fucked up,
yeah,
he's going to struggle with that, right?
100%. So there's competence, right? A man needs to be competent, and that's through experience, trial, and error. Then from competence, we start to develop confidence. Confidence comes from being competent in something. So it's like, yeah, you know what? I got this.
Totally.
Confidence leads to independence. Independence is I can make my own decisions and I'm comfortable with who I am because I'm confident because I've developed the competence.
Yeah.
Once you go through that, then you start to develop detachment. So you remain calm under pressure because you've developed your independence, because you know you can handle it, because you've got the confidence through the trial and error and the desire to build something through the competence you've developed over a lot of times, right? So when you start to develop this is why when we have good experiences as men, like I was just with my two bros this morning, and we just laugh, give each other banter, talk about stuff. I walk away from that feeling good because my testosterone goes up because I'm around other men. If I'm around women all the time, my estrogen's going to go up and I'm going to start to feel more feminine. So one of the red flags I say, I'm like, if he doesn't have any brothers and he's got a lot of female friends, run. Like if you're a woman, like that guy is going to be more like a woman than he will be like a man. So, and it's the same with vice versa. If she's got a lot of male friends and not really many female friends, that's a bit of a red flag as well.
Yeah, wow. That's a fascinating point. Well, I wonder, we know that hormones do interesting things.
Yep.
When you are, depending on the environment you're in. For instance, women who live together cycle together.
Yep.
So, like, why the fuck does that happen? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are reasons why that does happen, but the fact that it syncs up is quite amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, the people that you are surrounded by will affect your ideas, of course, but affecting your hormones makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, it's like, I've got quite a few really solid brothers, and I have a specific criteria that I want for the men that I'm around, which is like, one of them is they can't be out chasing women all the time, because then they're pleasure driven. They're not going to be dependable. They're going to be really pleasure driven. So they're going to be ruled by feelings. They're usually quite snaky and sneaky and sly.
Yeah.
They'll make moves on your woman behind your back. I've had that happen to me before enough times, and they don't care. They'll betray you.
Yeah.
They're overly.
It's like a drug addict. The priority
is
is very clear. And when you know that about that person.
Yeah.
Well, at least then it's kind of like, fool me once.
Shame on you.
Fool me twice.
Shame on me.
Yeah, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, you can see it a mile away once you're aware of it.
Yeah.
But the drug is not cocaine. The drug is pussy.
Yeah. And pleasure.
Yeah. And it is fascinating how intoxicating that is. I mean,
I've been there.
Me too. You get to a point in your life where probably testosterone is really high and wisdom is low.
Yeah.
And you're just driven by chasing.
Yeah.
And the way you treat your mates and your loved ones and even people you don't know who you probably should treat with love, you don't.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a reason why anyone on any sort of journey of self-discovery sooner or later gives that up and sees that it's pretty poisonous.
It's boy psychology.
Yeah.
You're out of control with your emotions, not because you got high testosterone, right? It's because you haven't transcended your boy psychology, because you're not in control, right? It's like, sure, testosterone might play a little bit into it, but it's like you're pleasure driven. So you're emotion driven, you're feeling driven, you're actually being effeminate.
Interesting, yes.
So if you're all about that and you can't control that, you're being effeminate.
That's funny. My wife was telling me something this morning. She was saying she was listening to a podcast where a woman was talking about the masculine and feminine, and she said, if you observe a big muscle-bound dude and he's screaming and he's really, flipping out, she's like, that's actually him out of balance with he's got too much, he's being feminine.
Well, nothing can exist in isolation.
Yeah.
Nothing does. There's no single one thing on this planet in creation. It has its opposite. So I was talking to my woman yesterday about this, and we're talking about narcissism, and she goes, I wonder what would happen if narcissists didn't have a victim. I'm like, it wouldn't exist, because it needs the opposite to exist. It's like, I was talking to my bro this morning about the Dark Knight movie with the Joker and Batman, and they're both the same archetype. They're both tricksters. They're both wearing masks. They're both hiding in the dark. They both need something to hide behind.
Yeah.
They just need each other to exist, because without the Joker, Batman wouldn't actually be able to exist.
Yeah.
So he needs him. And there's one great scene where it's like, you know, the Joker's hanging, and it's like the hangman in the tarot where he's got the leg upside down, and he's laughing, and he's like, you need me. You can't kill me. You need me, because he'd be killing a part of himself that he needs in order to survive. And it's this polar opposites, but they're one and the same.
Yeah, you're totally right. And you know what? As I'm getting older and observing my own behaviours and trying to look at the things that I do that I need to not do, for a pretty crude way of putting it, the more I start to enjoy and appreciate stories where the bad guy is kind of the good guy too, depending on what perspective you're looking at.
Yeah.
And rather than going, it's so black and white, good and evil, while I do think that exists in humans, it's just, I just think that's lazy to go that, you know, it's so much easier to go to other people. Oh, that culture's bad. They have different color skin. They have different beliefs. They do bad things. We would never do that.
Yeah.
Here in the country that I live in and the culture that I live in, we're good guys. They're bad guys. You know, that's like a real life version of what a lot of these kind of superhero stories tell us to believe. Here's the clear bad guy.
Yeah.
Disney does it too. Clear cut bad guy, clear cut good guy. But it's just not like that, because we have both of them within us.
Yeah. Yeah. And most people don't want to look at that. So if toxic masculinity exists, toxic femininity has to exist.
Hell yeah, it does.
You know, it's more just, I look at it as more like boy psychology or little girl psychology. You know, so if I'm looking at that, you know, like you were saying, when a man's really angry, that's why if you go to pubs, men drink and they get angry. It's not because the testosterone goes through the roof. It's because the alcohol makes their estrogen go through the roof.
Yeah,
but
right.
that's an uncomfortable conversation.
Is that physiologically what is happening?
Yeah, it shoots the estrogen and I think it's progesterone or prolactin, all three through the roof. That's what booze does. That's why men that drink a lot, they get fat and they get man boobs.
Hey, look, it's a fair correlation. I mean, yeah.
It's literally, it's science.
Yeah, right.
So when we're looking at that, you know, a man that's grounded and comfortable and breathes slowly and is calm and is direct and analytical and logical in his point, delivers it concisely. Like Jordan Peterson does it. He's probably the master of it in the world at the moment. And when you look at the way that he carries himself, he doesn't get flustered.
No.
He uses points that are not conjecture or opinion. They're facts and evidence. And when you present like that, like you said, my comments, most of the people that kick off in the comments are because they're presented with facts and evidence to the contrary of what they believe. So they fly into a spin and start throwing insults at me.
Yes.
And there's a lot of women in our society that are just hell-bent on trying to tell men how to be men. And I'm very direct with that. I'm like, to be fair, you will never know what it's like. You have no idea what it takes to be a man. So your opinion doesn't count here. You want to try to make men into girls, and like if they say, I want a man that's vulnerable, that feels so deeply, that's emotionally available, and you know, I can gossip with on the couch, and he can put his little head in my lap and cry his little eyes out. I'm like, then you want a fucking girlfriend or a daughter. You don't want a man. And the thing is with that is when they get around a man, especially if there's father wounding or feminist wounding, a man that knows how to lead is going to look like a man that's trying to control them. So they're either man makers or man destroyers. And I've seen a lot of men be destroyed by a lot of toxic women with wounds they haven't yet resolved. And men have done the same to women too. But for the sake of context in this discussion, women aren't innocent. They're not. Men aren't innocent either, but it's just a different way that it's playing out, and which is really interesting to watch. And I just call light to that. I just bring light to it because I'm not emotionally involved in it. It's just the facts.
And exactly what you said before, it's hard to hear, you know, it's that. And I've talked about Jordan Peterson a lot, you know, he's had a very profound impact on me, but it's one of the things that I think, one of the reasons why I think he gets a lot of heat, and probably you do too, is because it's the attitude of people want to take the perspective of, remember that in The Big Lebowski? You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole. It's kind of like that. It's like until what you're saying can be. It's hard to argue that it's wrong. I mean, it's easier to argue that you're an asshole if you are making me feel bad. So I can then say, well, you're an asshole.
Misogynist and narcissist is better.
Okay, we'll go with misogynist and narcissist,
Yeah.
But even then, when you really analyze that, what you're really doing is not being nurturing.
Yeah.
And the people who are upset by it need nurture right now because I'm upset.
Yeah.
And I use the word need, but really maybe that's not what they need. What they want is because, again, they're upset. Again, coming back to being like a child. And it's funny, I have an almost 2-year-old daughter now, and observing what an actual child needs. An actual child needs nurture and needs comfort.
Yep.
Most of the time when they're upset, but some of the time they don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's very important, in my opinion, to find the balance of when that is, when she needs to be nurtured, and when the moments are when she needs to pick herself up and take care of herself. Because my duty as a man and as her father is to equip her with the tools to be able to navigate the big bad world on her own.
Mm.
And I'll always be here for her, but I don't want her to be dependent on me.
Yep.
I want her to be a strong person who can take care of herself.
Yeah.
And hopefully find someone who will support her, in a partner.
Yep.
But right now she's a kid. She's a little kid.
Toddler.
She's a toddler, man. So seeing toddler behavior, little child behavior, and experiencing it moment to moment is really sobering, because I see moments of myself behaving like that and go, man, I'm 37. She's not even 2, and I'm wanting to behave like that.
Yeah.
And dude, it is profound how difficult transcending that has been. It's been a real journey of maturation for me. Growing into what I need to be. More importantly, not what I need to be, what she needs me to be, and what my wife needs me to be. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's been really painful.
Yeah.
And much, much more difficult than I thought it would be. And I think in doing this, I've actually realized why some men bail and they opt out, because they put it in the too hard basket and they go, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's too difficult. I'm not ready to, and I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. That's obviously not always the case for when they do that, but I've gotten a glimpse of going, oh, they're giving up in this moment.
Because they're weak.
That's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that I'm not fucking struggling, because I am too, and I'm feeling weak in those moments, but I'm not going to give up.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure it out, and it's going to be a lot messier than I want it to be or had planned it to be. Mm-hmm. But
so what you're saying in that is, I'll handle it.
Yeah.
That's the mark of a man. That's the measure of a man. Where do I step up to in times of need, chaos, without crumbling? In that moment, if you're feeling driven, you're going to be gone. Mm. Your wife and your little girl are going to suffer because of that, and it's like, one thing I sort of say is do whatever the fuck it takes. I was talking to my woman yesterday, and I was like, there's never in a million years that I would let you support me financially where I'm not the provider. I don't care if I have to work 20 hours a day. I've done that before. I've slept on an office floor eating 2 tins of tuna a day, and my dog was eating a kilo of kangaroo mince, spending more money on my dog so she could eat than I was. Most people won't do that, and I did that for 7 months. Most people will not do that. They'll go, no, fuck it, I'll just get a job, or I'll do it the easy way. And I'm like, when I lost all my money in the investment industry, I was sleeping on a hardwood floor with a sheet and a pillow, living on $6 a day because I wouldn't go on Centrelink or government benefits. That's saying I only get to do this once, and I'm going to make sure I do it right, and I will face whatever comes up in the meantime. The one thing I say to men is make a fucking living. Because if you can't even make a living for yourself, you're not going to be able to make it for anyone else. You're not going to have what it takes to look after someone else. And then it's going to get put in that too hard basket. I give up. I fold like a deck chair because I'm weak and I don't have the resilience or capacity to face this head on and go, I'm the problem. I need to sort that out. And that's what a man does, is I'll handle it. I've got it sorted. I'll handle it. Become reliable. Do what you say you're going to do, and let your words match your actions. If your words don't match your actions because you're dominated by feeling and you don't have strong enough discipline.
Wow, that right there. That's you. If your words don't match your actions, like that's kids.
It is,
because and a lot of people never figure that out.
Yep.
Because
they're ruled by feelings.
Yeah, and I'm observing it right now with my daughter trying to figure out. This is her job right now, is to figure out what the world is and what her place is in it and what she can and can't get away with.
Yeah.
And when she can't get away with something, she flips out.
Because she can't negotiate because it's all about her.
Yeah. And perfect. It's exactly where it's meant to be. This is the process.
Yeah.
For me to do that, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
We've got a problem.
A big problem.
Yeah. I'm a fully grown man.
Yeah.
And if in moments I want to do that, I need to do some homework. I need to sit down and need to go, okay, what are we doing here?
Yep.
So I can see how some women especially would be upset by you in the way that, saying how, look, I guess what I'm asking is, where's the point where a man is allowed to break down, because I think what can come up is that whole thing about going too far about, back at the men of the 50s or whatever, where it's like, men don't share your feelings.
Yeah.
Don't, a man doesn't share anything about his feelings. You bottle it up. And you can totally see how that can become problematic.
Yeah, that's suppression. That's not healthy masculinity. Right?
So how do we find that distinction? Because I think that's important to know who to share it with, how to share it, when to share it, what to deal with, and what to go, you know what, I'm not going to burden you with that. Or sometimes, fuck, I need to get this out.
Yep.
Where do we do that? Where's the healthy sweet spot for that?
With brothers. I say to men, 95% of your shit shouldn't be taken to your woman. Because I'm like, take it to your brothers, talk about it, get it out. Like me and my bros do that each morning. What's going on? It's like we check in. I don't need to go and take it to my woman then. Or if it's a problem that's concerning both of us, it's like, babe, this is what's going on. I don't feel very good today, but I'm just letting you know that it's got nothing to do with you. I don't want you to worry about it. I'm going to go hang with my bros. I'm going to go lift some weights. I'm going to go train jiu-jitsu. I want to get it out of me because I don't want this to spill out onto you, but I'm just letting you know that that's what's going on for me. I need a few hours to myself. That's high-level communication. So it's like, it's not about you.
Yeah.
I'm going to handle it. So she trusts you. It's not spilling out onto her. You're not taking it out on her. You're also not stonewalling her and separating from her because she will feel it. And then you're saying,
she'll feel it long before you know that you're doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then she'll say, no worries, do what you need to do. Or you could say, babe, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with everything. I feel like I just need a little bit of space to myself. Men need solitude. We have to have some solitude. And even, with my woman, I was like, look, I go and hang with my brothers for an hour, a couple hours a day, and then I go to the gym and I do all that. I need to take care of my equipment so I can be there for you. So it's a non-negotiable for me. And it's like when a man knows and he's clear and it's clarity, and with this woman that I'm with, it's fairly new, but I'm like monk or marriage. I'm not having sex with you before marriage. I know where I'm going. I know what I want. These are my values. This is my vision. This is my purpose. This is where I'm going. And if you're not on board, that's cool. Someone will be on board with that. And that's clarity and that's leadership. And you get like that, that's not being controlling. That's being clear on what you want. There's a difference between leading by inspiration versus ruling by fear.
Sure.
The boys that can't handle their feelings will want to rule by fear because a woman will intimidate them and they want them to mother them. A man doesn't need that, and he'll handle his own shit. And so it's like, it's leading. So when this woman and I were getting together, we were talking about, I said, what are your values? What are your vision? What do you want in a man? Where are you going? Where are you at in your life? And I said to her within the first hour, I said, I'm qualifying you to see if I claim you. Now, to a girl, that's going to be like misogynistic. To a woman that's integrated, that's going to represent masculine leadership. And she loved it.
Wow. I can see how a lot of women, girls, shall I rephrase, would be like, "Ew,
Yeah.
how dare you talk about me like that, blah, blah, blah." But I can also completely see how a secure woman would go, "Cool, now here's where I'm at."
Yeah.
And give you what she's after.
Yeah.
And kind of take it or leave it. It's controlling if you aren't letting her leave.
100%.
If you are saying, "Here's who I am, how do you feel about it?"
Yeah.
And how does your response make me feel?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
There's no problem there.
Yeah.
That's polarity.
It's like, just go away if you don't like it.
Yeah.
You
It's
don't
like,
have to talk
this
shit
is where
on
I'm
it.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going this way with or without you. And this is what I'm after. And that a man that knows what he wants is going to inspire a woman to follow that because she will trust him. Because a man can't be that clear if he doesn't trust himself or know himself well.
Yeah.
For me, I'm comfortable there. I'm 40 years old. I've been with a lot of women. I'm cool. That's not a mark of being ego. That's just the truth, right? I would do it differently if I was the man I am now. I'm happy. I've been celibate for 9 months. I'm cool. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't need to go out and sleep around to prove something to myself because I'm in the territory where I want to be a husband, I want to be a father, I want to raise a family. So I have to have the clear conviction to step into that, to not compromise my own values for some pleasure with someone that I don't know. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to compromise myself like that. So I live by a set of values. Values inspire my needs. Needs inform boundaries. Boundaries have consequences. And this forms an aspect of self-rights of what I will and won't allow in my life.
Fucking good for you, man.
Thanks, man.
That's some powerful stuff. And that's a lot of discipline you're talking about.
Yeah.
And look, it's of course easier. Well, I don't know about easier, but you have the wisdom of having been promiscuous in your past and knowing.
As a womanizer.
Yeah.
I like to say that because I can say promiscuous or whatever, but it's the honest truth is I was a womanizer.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So that and that felt right at the time until it didn't.
Yeah.
And now you're like, I've done that. I mean, it's, hats off to the people who were never a womanizer and wait for a very long time before having sex.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing, I think. But to be able to go, okay, cool, I've done that, and I know that's not where it's at. That doesn't hit the spot, and in fact, it's going in the wrong direction. And for you to be able to find that wisdom of where you're at now, it's a lot of discipline, and it's inspiring from my perspective, and it's got to be inspiring from her perspective. Otherwise, she wouldn't be sticking around.
Yep. Because everything's taken care of. She doesn't have to worry. So women need safety and security. And this is where it gets mixed up. Security is protection and provision. Safety is love and connection. Right? So as a man, you have to provide security first and foremost. Then safety is the love and connection, where I always talk about to men, I'm like, deal with the feelings, then make her feel felt, and then you probably won't have to deal with the facts of the problem after that. So
because that's not what it's about.
It's not. The complaint is never usually the complaint. But most men go into, I'll fix that.
Yeah.
And then she just feels dismissed, unheard, unloved. What she's saying is love me more.
And it's hard not to do that as a man because our instinct is to solve problems.
That's where we get value from. I'm a professional problem solver.
Yeah.
That's what I do. And it's like, for me not to go.
You feel fulfilled doing that.
Right.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, cool. And she's like, yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't say that, but she'll nod and smile maybe, but it's not fixed.
I was working with a couple recently, and she was making complaints to the man, like didn't like the dog walker, the cleaner, and he's off working and doing all that, and he's like, well, I'll get new cleaners, I'll get new dog, I'll get new this. And then there was a gap in their conversation for 30 seconds where they both went silent. He goes, all right, well, that's all good, solved the problem, I'm going to bed, right? And I said to him, I'm like, dude, mate, that's not what she was saying. She was saying, you're away from me, these problems are here, you're not here to fix them, and you're not making me feel loved. And now you don't understand me because I'm waiting for you to lead the conversation to say, babe, what I'm picking up on is a bit of distance between us and a bit of disconnection, and I want to take responsibility for that, but help me understand you a little bit more for what's going on, because I can hear underneath it something's bothering you. And I said that to her, and she was like, almost started crying because it was like...
It was right on the button.
Yeah. So feelings first.
Yeah.
And if you're in an argument, you go, yeah, I get that, you're feeling really upset with me right now because I didn't, remember something, and I really understand why you would feel like that, and I'm really sorry. But before we deal with the facts, do you mind if I hold you for a minute?
Yeah. Okay. So let's just. Why is that hard for males and females? Because let's just clear that up. Because it's theory of mind, right? Where I'm thinking as a man and as a male that this is what I would want, so I'm going to give that to you. Instead of going, what I want is not what you want as a female.
Or what you need.
What you need. So I need to put what I would do and what I want aside and observe and listen and feel to what you need.
Yep.
And provide that. So that's where the miscommunication is.
Yeah.
Instead of I'm doing it. That's not. It's
That's
like, you're saying that you're upset because of that. Well, I'll fix that.
Yep.
Cool. The intention's good, but it's not. It's missing the mark.
Because the reason why is because men don't like intensity. We want to be empty. We want to be still. We want to be the mountain. That's what I want. I don't want to think. I don't want to feel anything. I just want to be still and empty. Women want to be full. So in order for the woman to be full, we've got to handle the intensity of the chaos, which I'd love that.
Yeah.
Right? I'd give me a feminine woman. Fuck. That's certainly my weakness, right? And my woman's very feminine. And so it's like, that's a turn on for me. But if you like the turn on of like a pleasure-filled woman, you better be ready to handle the intensity of the chaotic woman as well at the same time.
Yeah, you can.
They kind of go hand in hand.
Well, let's remember that video, and it's pretty funny, but there's a lot of truth to it if you're not being kind of as mean, shall I say, as the guy is in that video where the guy's talking about the hot, crazy matrix.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe crazy is a bit of a mean term to use, but we all know what it means.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, what he's talking about is, instead of let's change hot and crazy for feminine and chaotic, perhaps, or maybe even a better word than chaos. But yeah, exactly what you're describing is the more feminine she is, the more waves of chaos and emotion that she's going to feel.
Yeah,
because she's a she. Because that's what it is.
100%. That's it. And we don't like the intensity. That's why we want to get rid of it. So a man being grounded with no feeling, not from a point that he can't feel, but just empty, is someone that's grounded, that's stable, that's solid, that's reliable, dependable, that's purpose-driven and clear. I don't want to feel all this stuff. I don't like it. Intense feelings make me feel out of control. Not a fan. Whereas if I'm empty and still and grounded and present, I can be with someone like I am with you. My breathing's quite slow. I'm not sitting here going like that and talking over you and like trying to jump in. I'm sitting here listening because I'm with you, because I'm empty. And then when you take that to a woman, she'll soften.
And it really is a skill in learning how to hold space in that sense. Again, kind of what I was talking about before. The instinct, at least for me, has been do what I would want. But that's just wrong. Yeah. It's just not going to work. Yeah. It might work for you as Mark and Jag, because if you come to me and you've decided that you want to tell me that there's something that's bothering you that you need help with, well, you're obviously telling me because you need help with it.
Yeah.
Because you're asking me, bro, what do I do? But otherwise you won't tell me. And the chances of me needing to pry it out of you are probably pretty low. That's kind of less that happen. I mean, sometimes that can be the case, but the point is that if you've come to me with a problem, you want the problem fixed.
Yeah.
If you're a woman and you come to me with a problem, what I've learned is that it's not so much that you want the problem fixed. It's that I have feelings and I want them to be acknowledged.
They want to be heard and understood.
Yeah. Well, because that's if you can observe a conversation between girlfriends, that's what they'll do. They'll be like, "Oh, no way, really?"
Yeah. And
they're just listening and sharing little moments of something similar happened to me, and they'll go and they'll share, and there's not really any solutions.
Yeah.
I mean, at least if it's a healthy relationship, sometimes it's you need to do this and this is, you're a queen and all this and you've done nothing, Sometimes that can be pretty
Toxic.
detrimental and toxic. So,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about that. What's toxic femininity look like?
Manipulation, like ultra chaos. I saw this post once, and I talk about this a lot, and it said, test him 1,000 times and test him 1,000 times more. I'm like, that's once a day for 6 years. If you test me once a day for 6 days, you're out. I'm not putting up with that. That's childish. That's manipulation. That's abuse.
Yeah.
It'll be being leaky with their sexual energy as well, which is luring men in under the guise of sex or the promise of sex but not delivering. So leakiness, when I talk about that, is any form of sexual energy deficit that should be directed towards your partner, that is directed towards getting attention from someone that turns you on. Instagram, 100%.
It's amazing, isn't it? You go into, I have to do this thing where I'll go into my search in Instagram, and obviously the algorithm's pretty powerful because I have instincts where if there's a bikini clad female, my eyes go there.
Yeah.
And I, with the intention, go, I'm not going to spend too much time there because that's not what I've come here for, and that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I know it's bad for me. I know it's bad for my relationship, but it's an instinct. I look. And so I do this thing where I have to go through every few months, and I intentionally it's like, I don't like this, I don't want to see this. And all the bikini pics, I do it, and it changes the algorithm for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm actually not being shown that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how much of it is there and how many women are putting themselves out there in that way, but they're married or they're in relationships.
Oh yeah, no.
And it's a tricky thing. And this is probably going to be an upsetting thing to talk about, but I just personally feel like it's attention seeking. If you are in,
100%.
Women, well, everybody knows that males are visual creatures. It's just, and females less so.
Mm-hmm.
So by being a woman and using a visual that is very enticing to a male, any male, you inherently know what you're doing.
Of course they do.
So it's confusing.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere.
So it's like, if they're a model, that's one thing. The woman I'm with, she's a model. So it's like, I said to her, I'm like, when we get to a certain point, this is done. I'm not, because you're a reflection of me. And if I'm going to take care of you, I'm not being with a woman that's like that. Yeah. And I'm okay with wanting that.
Yeah.
A woman can want.
And she's okay to walk away if
she wants to keep doing it. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like the women can go, 6 figures, 6 foot and 6 inches. But if I say, no, I'm not going to have my woman's ass on social media, you're a misogynist, you're controlling. No, it's called having fucking standards. That I'm going to set an example for my children when I have children with her. I don't want my daughter thinking that that's a way to get validated or that, my son, the mum's an object. And so it's like, oh, okay, it's cool for me to objectify women. No, modesty is an important trait for me. And I'm perfectly okay with that and comfortable with that, and I think that's a really important aspect to look at because it's like, it is completely for validation. Why else would you be doing it? If no one was looking, you wouldn't be doing it. I had a conversation with a girl I was seeing, and she was a girl in a woman's body, like a few years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. And I was around her friends and they were all strippers and all that. And they're like, yeah, it's sexual liberation, it's female empowerment. I'm like, how is it powerful if you take the men out of there, you've got no work? That's not powerful. You're selling your body for a bit of plastic. There's nothing less powerful. Like, you're completely giving your power away for a little bit of money. There's nothing powerful about that or empowering about that. That's the trap, right? Give your body away. A woman's most valuable asset, not the only asset, but the most valuable is her body because she's the temple for creation. She's the life steward. She holds, like, you selling that? No, that doesn't work for me. And a man's most valuable commodity is his life force, because that's what he impregnates the woman with. And what are men doing? Red pill manosphere, go out and spread it around as much as you want.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is, on both sides, the more that you withhold the more powerful you are.
100%.
Isn't that funny?
Definitely.
That's where the power is.
There's a reason why there's a whole movement back to this sort of trad con lifestyle, like traditional lifestyle of like homesteading and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not that extreme with it, but it's like there's a reason it's going back to that, because this system, it doesn't work.
Failing.
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. I can see a lot of beauty in it.
Yeah.
And it's tempting, that the traditional kind of style of things, the homesteading style of things, you know, the taking care of yourselves in your own kind of libertarian family unit way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny, like you hear about all this political talk about communism, right?
Well, feminism's an arm of communism.
Right.
Equality for all.
Yeah, okay.
It's an arm of communism.
Well, I guess what I was, I guess what I was getting at though is like an actual commune that functions, that seems great. An actual commune where people actually provide for the group that they are in the manner that they can. But that's not what communism ever becomes.
No.
It's never like that.
No, it never is.
And I guess it's like, it just gets too big.
Yeah.
You know, you live in a small tribe, and that's kind of what they were. It was actual communism in a tribal situation until it got to the point where there were too many people and they split.
But there were still defined roles.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, if it's in a community, it's like the men are going to go and hunt, the men are going to protect. The women aren't going to do that.
No.
Whereas in a communist society, it's, the women can be the hunters, the men can be the childbirthers and all that sort of bullshit that's going on. So it becomes completely backwards.
Yeah.
You know, and it's an interesting place to be, because if we look at feminism, it wasn't started in the 60s for equal rights. It was started in 1923 in the Frankfurt School with the agenda to make men the oppressor and women the oppressed, to install homosexuals in the church and destroy the family unit. And it's done that. It's achieved its aims under the guise of female liberation from the home, from being a mother. That's why everyone's gone back to it now, because they're like, this doesn't work.
Okay, so just go back. Where did that start again?
The Frankfurt School in 1923.
Talk to me about that.
So the Frankfurt School was, I believe it was Marxist or Leninist, I can't remember right now, but that was the agenda. Like Elliot Holtz, who's a masculinity coach, talks about this as well, right?
Yeah.
It was already there. Agendas get played out years before they come into action. And the whole reason for it is because there was part of the population wasn't being taxed, which was the woman.
Ah, yes, I've heard about this. And it was a money grab.
It was a money grab.
If we get women into the workforce, we can tax double the amount of people we're taxing.
We split the family up, then the state gets to raise the children. The next generation is indoctrinated by the state, which makes them more malleable, which now we're looking at the trans movement, which is a result of that.
Fuck, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's masterful. It's like there's the KGB guy, Yuri Bezmenov, talks about how to overthrow a government. He works through 4 main tenets of a communist takeover, which is the greatest war you ever win is the one you never have to fight. Right, which is the first one is destabilization. Then the second one is demoralization. Or those, I can't remember which one's first, but they're the first 2. The third one is crisis, and the fourth one is normalization. So we look at, demoralization's first. The 2001 attack on the Twin Towers. Destabilization, the 2008 GFC. Crisis, the pandemic. The new normal. This is normalization. And each subversive movement takes about 20 years to complete. And we're at 23 years.
Fuck.
Yeah. And that's what we're in. And feminism was a part of that. I'm all for, like, everyone should have equal rights. Yeah. The pay gap's largely been disproved because of the different types of jobs that women and men do. And then they tested that in Scandinavia, which is the most egalitarian society that we've got on the planet. And each gender, because there's only 2, actually went and did typically more masculine male jobs and female feminine jobs, like nurses versus engineers and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so this is the stuff that people don't want to talk about because it's not comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like these traditional roles of lifestyle. Women are like, you know, a lot of them are like, they're desperate just to lean back and relax. And it's like, you handle it. By men that are clear, you know, with my woman, like if I'm going into a session or I just messaged her before we came to this, I said, babe, I'm just going into a podcast. I'll message you after. And she said to me yesterday, she goes, it is so refreshing that you just let me know what you're doing So I'm not sitting there worrying or maybe being emotional that you're stonewalling or you're providing distance or whatever, which in the manosphere and the red pill, they're like, play the game. Don't be available. And I'm like, you're fucking boys doing that shit. That's manipulating a woman. Whereas with her, I'm like, I'm going into 3 back-to-back sessions. I'll message you when I'm done, you know, or I'm just going to have a workout. I'll message you afterwards. I'm just really clear. And it takes 3 seconds to do that. She feels considered. She feels understood. She feels like I care for her. And she just goes, it just is so refreshing that I can relax because you're considering me and what you're doing.
Yeah, I can see that too, because she would be also, you're communicating to her that you are available for her.
Yeah.
This is where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm doing me right now, and just so you know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not playing games. There's nothing elusive.
Yeah.
You don't need to connect any imaginary dots in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it's at, and she can chill.
She can chill. And she's like, yeah, cool, no worries, all good.
Sure. Sure.
Why create all that unnecessary tension?
Yes.
If you're with the right woman, you won't need to do that. And it's very boy behavior, the whole pickup artistry and be a mystery and all that sort of stuff it's boy psychology and girl psychology, and it preys on that.
Yeah, I was listening to a conversation recently, but with a family therapist and a psychotherapist, and he does a lot of relationship stuff and couple stuff. And he was saying that it's interesting how these days what both men and women are craving is committed relationships.
Yep.
And you would think that would be mostly what women want, but the guy said it was like 50-50.
Yeah.
That's just what, and the other thing they were saying is because of the dating apps, it's almost like they're terrified of a person actually just being straight up about what they want, but yet they know what they want, but they don't think they don't feel like they can say what they want.
Yep.
Which is really frightening. You know, I've been with my wife now, we've been together for 12 years. And so we missed it. Neither of us have ever had a dating profile in our lives. So there's an element of, don't get me wrong, there's an element of excitement when I see one of my good mates doing the swipey game. I'm like, oh, can I play? Can I play for a minute?
Yeah.
But instantly I end up falling into taking they always tell me I'm taking too long on each profile. I look at the photos, I read what she has to say about herself, and they're like, what are you doing, man?
Just swipe.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what do you mean, what am I doing? Am I not doing it right? Obviously, it seems as though it's just become this, you know, and the intention to actually be forthcoming with what you want has just been kind of squeezed out. So people don't feel like they can sit down and have the conversation with a potential partner, like you said before, like, this is where I'm going, this is what I want to have children, or I don't want to have children, or I want a committed relationship. They're terrified of saying those kinds of things, which I think is really sad.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I like the 3 dating apps. Tinder, I call it Tindergarten because it's just a bunch of kids running around. Hinge, I call cringe. And Bumble, I call fumble because you're going to constantly drop the ball trying to find what you want on there. Right? It's like, I say, like, with Tinder, I'm like, you're going to keep learning lessons in the classroom of Tindergarten, you know? And it's like, some people, it works for some people, but it's a small minority.
Yeah. Well, it does seem as though, and, you know, again, it's easy for me to say this stuff because I'm on the outside and I've never been in that, but it just seems as though you're missing out what I believe is the most important element of an interaction with another person, which is an actual interaction with a real person.
Yeah.
You can present however the fuck you want when you have photos. You can tune them and change them and pick the exact perfect photo. You can spend ages and ages curating the perfect thing to say, but yet you don't get to meet the person until you've decided that you like them based on a fake version of them.
Yep.
Whereas I see a woman in a bar, or a woman that I work with, or wherever you see her and you feel something, that's for a reason.
Yeah.
And vice versa. That's for a reason. It's because it's real.
Yeah.
Not because it's, you know, your map is wrong from the get-go with these apps.
Yeah, totally.
And it makes perfect sense why people are just failing and feeling lonely.
Yeah, and then they use that as a distraction tool to get some sort of satisfaction or validation because they're too scared to be alone. right? And so they
So it just
want company.
perpetuates.
Yeah, it just keeps going. And, you have to be very intentional about it. I live a very good life and I choose how I live. And so a woman has to be very special to make me want to change that because I'm more than good on my own. And so for me to change that, I have a qualification list where a woman is going to actually need to make my life better or enhance it as opposed to make it more difficult.
Well, I think that should be the case for anyone before they get into a relationship.
I agree.
If you are not happy and comfortable with your life, don't get into a relationship.
Yeah.
That's not going to fix it. You need to fix your own stuff.
Yeah.
Well, at least work on it. And I think that, and it's funny because my wife and I both have talked about this many times. We were both in a place where we had been in relationships that were not working and made, we were young, but we still had the foresight to make the decision to go, you know what? I'm not going to get into a relationship for a while.
Yeah.
I'm actively going to reject doing that.
Yeah.
Rather than just, I'll see what happens. Like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And we both found ourselves in a place where we met each other and went, oh, this actually feels better than the life I'm happy with being single.
Yeah.
So now we're in a good place to get involved.
Yeah.
And that sounds exactly like what you described. And I think that seems so much more healthy than, fuck, I'm so lonely. I need to find someone. I need a partner.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, this is why men, they need purpose. Because purpose is the thing that guides you through in times of difficulty where you keep showing up. Okay. My father died in February and I had a podcast on the next day. I showed up to that. I had a group mentorship. I showed up to that. I had 2 individual sessions. I showed up to that. I went and trained jiu-jitsu and did an ice bath the day he died because I made a commitment I was going to do it for 90 days in a row, every day. I've been training jiu-jitsu for 9 years now, but it was like I showed up to all my I didn't miss one commitment. Wow. And because I said, I'll grieve in my own time, but I'm responsible for people. And some people could say, that maybe that's unhealthy or whatever, but that was my choice because your father only dies once. Yeah. And I said, this is an opportunity to forge a part of me into being more resilient and more capable, and I'll grieve in my own time. And I did. It's not that I didn't feel anything. I did, after about 2-3 months after he died, man, it fucking hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was crying for like a week, of like 5-6 hours at a time, just unloading on my own. And it was like, I used a very specific way to deal with that, but I still got through all my stuff. I still showed up.
Now, there's a lot of people that would say upon hearing that, oh, that's really unhealthy. You suppressed it and you didn't give it the attention it needed at the time, which is why it all came out in a heap at a certain time in your life later.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, that's normal. People are going to want to do that, right? And say that, but it was my process. So the grieving cycle, right? So it's like, I if someone says that's not how you do it, I'm like, who the fuck are you to say how I grieve my own father?
There you go, man.
Grief goes through a process. It's denial, then it's anger, then it's bargaining, then it's depression, then it's acceptance.
Give me those again.
So denial is the first one.
Yeah. So that's going to take time.
It does. Yeah.
Some people it'll take 10 minutes. Some people it'll take
years. My sister's still grieving 9 months later, having a hard time.
Okay.
Right. But I've moved through my process with it. I moved through things very quickly. So it was denial, then it's anger.
Okay. Yeah.
Then it's bargaining with God, bargaining like, why please make it easier for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it's depression. Depression is the shutdown where you have to deal with it. Then it moves into acceptance.
Yeah, wow.
So it's not just about like, okay, cool, he's died. I remember where I was sitting. I remember exactly. It was 7:23 in the morning and I was sitting on the edge of my bed and my older brother called me and I was like, he's dead.
Oh, wow. Was he unwell?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Okay.
He was unwell for a while. And I went through that and I just went, okay, he's gone. And I sat with it and I was like.
You felt what you felt at the time?
Yeah. There was a bit of tension, not too much. A few little tears came up, but I wasn't ready to understand that process yet. So I moved into what I needed to move into. And then there was a song by a guy named Ian Tongi who won American Idol, and he did the song by James Blunt called Monsters. And in the lyrics, it says, you're not my son, you're not my father, I'm not your son, we're just 2 grown men saying goodbye. No need to forgive, no need to forget. I know your mistakes and you know mine. And I used this song to grieve my father because there was resentment there. And through that, I got to release all of that resentment towards him for what he'd done. I focused on instead of who he was. And in the absence of the resentment and sitting in that, I actually saw he was a great dad. But I was holding on to that. And then I got to let go of that. And profound peace has followed, which is, where being with this new woman, I'm like, this is what I want. This is who I am. This is where I'm going. And it cleared out any remaining tendrils. And this is really interesting on social media because Jordan Peterson said it, and I heard it a few years ago, where he said, you don't become a man until your father dies. And I got it intellectually, but I didn't get it until he was gone, because there's a subconscious connection that your father provides for you that you can't understand until he dies, that it's gone. Because then I become the man. Then it's now I'm the lineage. I need to carry this forward. This is on me now. I have to be the man. It's easy when your father's there, but it's, when he's gone, it's like there's a void that will never be filled. And it's, and this is the kind of the nature of inexperienced people that haven't had exposure. That I had people on there saying, that's not true. You can have an ego death. You can have I'm like, is your father dead? And they're like, no. I'm like, then shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. I know. I've been through the ego death, the psychedelic spiritual death, the fucking death of identity, the death of who I thought I was. I've done all that. And nothing hit me like my father dying did. Nothing. None of it was even close. So it's like this spiritual grandstanding of it can be an ego death. Firstly, if you think you're having an ego death, the thing that's telling you that is the ego, right? That's why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it's like a letting go and a resolution. And I also think one of the aspects to that is probably when you become a father. Now, I'm not a father, so I don't know. I hope to be soon. I feel that's going to happen for me pretty quickly. But I know for a fact that whatever tendrils and psychic bond that is going on with the father, when that breaks, what comes up is for you to deal with the shit that you haven't dealt with if you're a healthy, well-adjusted person.
I feel that, man. I feel that really deeply. That's thanks for sharing that process, man. That was quite intricate. It took you the time that it took you, and it was only upon proper analysis, which again is a very masculine trait, of what had happened and what your relationship was before you could actually go, oh, here it comes, and let it come out. It's a real motherfucker, isn't it, grief?
Yeah.
And the only grief that I've really experienced is towards a dog.
Yeah. I get that too. My last dog died 4 years ago, and that was a pretty brutal process as well.
Well, I think, I have no point of reference for what my dad's still with me.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of when he goes is just hearing you talk about it. I completely agree without knowing what it's like.
Yeah.
And I know that it's going to be completely different to obviously losing a dog.
Yeah.
But I think that, when it's a pet, it's more of the losing a child kind of relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that makes perfect sense, because becoming a father has been, as I said before, this journey of maturation that I frankly I thought I was prepared for, but wasn't.
Yeah.
And I was as prepared as I could be, but was not prepared for how difficult it would be and how much maturation was required of me and was going to be basically thrust upon me. See, here's the underlying thing. I'm determined to be a good dad and in turn be a better husband and partner.
Yeah.
So that's not going. But that makes the other parts of the growth almost more difficult, because I know there's no out.
Yeah.
It's just figure it out.
Yeah. I'll handle it.
Yeah, even though the little boy in me goes, oh, I don't want to handle it. I want to go and, do whatever the fuck I want to do. Shut up.
Yeah.
Not that I talk to myself like that, but
sometimes you have to.
Sometimes you have to. As a dude, you have to go, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Just get it done.
Yeah.
Stop procrastinating. Just do it.
Yeah. It's a great point. And in that, maybe it doesn't need to happen for you when your father dies. I'm not saying that I can guarantee through every experience of every man losing their father that that's what's going to happen. I'm more saying it from the type of man that has got unresolved stuff there with his father, that's what's going to happen. And most people do. I've literally worked with people that their parents die and they go back to being an 8-year-old They talk like it.
Wow.
And they move back into it because it's a powerful process, and it's like that's what happened for me. And I think it's like boy psychology to man psychology. That's one of the major rites of passage that you have to go through in order to really crystallize that part.
That's it's interesting that you use the term rite of passage.
Yeah.
And I think that as observing the female experience, they have a few rites of passage that they don't get a choice in, you know, when they get their period.
Yep.
And when they give birth or get pregnant, that whole process. And it's like, that's full on.
Yeah.
And they don't get to decide whether or not, I mean, they get to decide whether or not they become a mother, but they don't get to decide whether or not they become a woman.
Yeah.
And that's something that as males, we just don't have.
Yeah.
We don't really have, at least in the West, we don't have any rites of passage unless we choose them, unless we bring them upon ourselves. Now, from what you're saying, perhaps the death of a parent is a rite of passage. But other than that, as we're growing and as we're forming, I kind of feel like we need them and we are lacking them, and that's why more primitive tribal communities did them for the males.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. It was an essential part of a boy becoming a man. He was left out in the wilderness, you know, stung by psychedelic wasps or something like that and covered in honey, and left so he could face himself, what it's like to be without the support of the men around him that are going to protect him.
So it's a period of growth in the sense of how the fuck am I going to get myself out of this situation?
Yeah. You have to almost go into a complete give it to God, surrender, give it over to my gods, whatever process they use at the time. The woman is through the birthing process and the man is through the death process, death of the father, death of the boy, so to speak. And the woman is through the birthing process and the creative process. So it's kind of like the opposite playing out as usual.
As usual.
Yeah. As usual.
It is. I'll tell you what, man, the birth of our daughter and that, even the process of being pregnant is fascinating. It is truly like that the day when my daughter was born, from the night before to when she arrived, man, the time just stands still.
Yeah.
It was, nothing else existed. And it was amazing, truly amazing to observe my wife be in that exceptionally grounded state of giving birth.
Yep.
You know, bringing a human into the world. She's grown this person inside of her. You know, all I did was give her the seed, and the rest of it, she built it from scratch.
Yeah.
And then that process is like, oh man,
amazing.
You know, it's truly amazing.
Yeah.
I got new respect for that word and for women anyone who is a mum ever since that day, and seeing and feeling and being there for what that was, man, cracked me open.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I can't wait for you to go through that, man. When the time is right, I look forward to sitting down again and having a chat about that, because fuck, man, that's a trip.
Yeah.
that is, you know.
And how powerful and amazing you honoring your wife like that. In the manosphere, you'd be like, he's a beta. It's like, shut the fuck up. You guys are boys, you know what I mean? It's like, that's honoring your woman. I respect that. Yeah,
cheers. Well, it is what needed to be done. She needed me to be there for her, and I was the person to do it for her and with her.
Yeah.
She needed me there.
Yeah.
Apart from the 15 minutes when I almost passed out and was lying on the floor, and I was like, I'll be with you in a minute, babe.
Yeah.
I'll be back. But I was with her for the rest of the time, you know, and I was there. my body my vagus nerve got the best of me for a moment, but I was like, don't you worry, I'm going to be back. The nurse is fanning me.
Yeah.
And then but I was.
It's a good thing you weren't paying attention to your feelings.
Yeah. But But it's it's what needs to be done. She's like, there's a time and a place. This is when, and anyone who sees what is happening and what she's going through, it's like there's nothing else remotely close to it.
No.
That a person that I've ever experienced a person or seen a person experience. So just to be in the presence of it is so humbling, let alone be the one going through it.
Yeah.
And the irony is, my wife tells me that she feels like she kind of doesn't remember a lot of it, whereas I'm the one who was like so hyper present for everything.
Yeah.
And I can, relay every little detail to her.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like, and that's why we need to be capable men, because we need to protect that. We don't protect women because they're weak. We protect them because they're important. And it's
like that. We need that on the T-shirts.
Yeah, it'd be a good
great.
T-shirt. And it's like, there's this like implication with it that women can protect themselves. And I went on a date years ago, and this woman I was talking to, somehow we got on the conversation, and it was around, she said, "Oh, I don't need you to protect me." I said, "Yeah, at 2 a.m. when you're walking down the street on your own, there's two guys that look dodgy across the road. You're going to want me there."
Yeah.
And a woman shouldn't have to put up with potentially being attacked. I think it's disgusting that we live in a world that even has that. But as men, we need to be there in support.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And coming back to what you said earlier about how a woman will never know what it is like to be a man and vice versa.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit that comes with being a man. If I'm the guy walking down the street at 2 a.m. and there are two dudes staring me down, I've got to deal with that. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
That threat of physical violence, which is the language that primarily males speak a lot more so than females.
It's the weapon of the masculine, aggression.
It's a real fucking thing, man.
Yeah.
And you cannot eradicate it.
No.
Because sometimes it's necessary.
It's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
And it's good to know how to be violent.
Yeah.
It's good to know it. I know how to do it. I don't want to go and do it,
Yeah.
but I can use it and draw on it if I need to.
Yeah.
I've done martial arts now for 14 years.
Yeah, right.
But the best thing that taught me is how not to fight.
Yes.
Because I'll stay calm in that situation, and I'd rather talk my way out of it rather than react to it. I haven't always been like that. I used to be very aggressive, and I used to like to get into street fights.
Yeah, right.
I used to like it, enjoy it, and now I never again. Right? I'd never want to do it again unless I was protecting my woman.
Sure.
I could talk myself out of it. I'd probably rather run away. I remember my first martial arts trainer, I was trying to decide what to do, whether it's Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, or whatever. I said, "So what's the best self-defense?" And he goes, "Don't be there."
And they'll all say that.
Yeah.
Anyone that's remotely close to a black belt, they'll all say that.
Yeah. Don't be there. I got no drama in running away or walking away from it. Maybe not run, I'd walk away or try to talk it down. In fact, I wouldn't run away. That was a silly comment. I'd walk away. Let's go, "I'm not doing this with you, man."
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you can have it. See ya.
Yeah.
That's someone that's more powerful than going, I'll fucking kill you, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyone that's sitting there going, "I'll fucking kill you, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, they're either unhinged or they don't know how to fight.
Yeah, and it was, it's funny you said I had an incident recently where I heard shouting out the front of the house. So I've gone out there to see what's going on, and there's a young guy and a girl. They're probably in their, probably 16, 17. And he's marching away in front of her. She's following him, a good few paces behind. They're swearing at each other, saying horrible things to each other. And then at one point, I just watched them because I was like, I'm hoping this doesn't get to the point where I'm going to need to intervene here. Yeah. Because I absolutely don't want to do that. But I can't stand here and watch some dude put his hands on a girl.
Yeah.
Whether or not what's happened here, I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, if it gets physical, he's going to win.
Always.
Yeah, it's just what it is. Yeah. Unless she's massive, which she's not.
Yeah.
He's just more powerful than her physically. It is what it is.
Yeah.
There is no discussing that.
Yeah.
So it comes to the point when he takes his jumper off and he gets real close to her and he throws it at her, and I was like, oh fuck, here we go. So I went down the drive and was standing on the street, and I'm on the edge of thinking, shit, I'm going to have to go and deal with this. I don't really know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But at least hopefully my presence will be enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm standing there, I got a shaved head. At the time I had no shirt on, I think, because it was hot.
Yeah.
And I've got my big black ute next to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how intimidating I may have come across because I'm not a violent dude.
Yeah.
I'm not an aggressive dude. I never have been. But I am aware that I can appear as though I could be.
Yeah.
And this kid starts to yell at me, "What are you going to do about it, you bald fuck?" All this kind of stuff. But he's walking away as he's doing it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, there's nothing more threatening than someone saying that. He's going, I'll take your fucking head off or something like that. There's nothing more threatening than someone saying they're going to injure you as they are walking away from you.
Yeah.
And the girl starts coming back this way and he's just yelling at me all this kind of business as he's leaving, which was an interesting display of what you're just talking about,
Yeah.
He's obviously not going to be violent because he's pretending to be violent.
Yeah, 100%.
And he was probably, even though I really did not want to have to do
scared.
anything, he was probably terrified.
Yeah.
And I even played out in my mind, and imagine if I just started walking towards him or running towards him.
Yeah.
The poor dude would have shat himself.
Definitely.
Absolutely shat himself.
Yeah.
And I'm not acting like I'm some big tough guy who knows, anything. But the fact is, there would have been a very frightening situation for him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, carrying on like that, he may do that in front of the wrong person who will charge at him.
Yeah.
And he's a boy.
Mm.
He's a boy having a tantrum.
Man, it's a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
I saw a video of he was an MMA fighter up in Queensland. I don't know if it's Gold Coast or whatever. And 2 sort of young 16-year-olds, probably like Nike lad kind of, whatever. And they were bashing people or whatever. And this MMA fighter, and I sent it to my mate. I'm like, as soon as I started watching it because he was calm, I'm like, this guy knows how to fight because he's calm. And these other 2 lads are like spitting at him and going off.
This.
Yeah.
He just sleeps one dude, right?
He slapped one and knocked one out and then head kicked the other one and laid him out. And just walked off, and he was just calm the whole time. He's just watching, going like this. His stance was in the right way. He was open to both of them, and he's just going like this.
But he's not instigating.
He's not instigating. He's just keeping it at bay. And they're going, "I'll fucking kill you," And then the girl comes over and goes, "My dad's a bodybuilder.
I've seen this.
He'll destroy you."
Yeah.
And you see the difference between the two. 2 of them didn't know how to fight at all, and they got cleaned up.
So
and he did. Yeah.
Bravado.
Yeah.
Try and make yourself bigger and stronger than you actually are. And then the one who is the power, he's just
staying calm and just watching. And then they get close and he gives them a little clip. And he could have demolished both of them easily.
He just shut them down.
Yeah. And he did what he needed to do.
I saw another one where there's this guy who's he's a small lad. And I think the dude that he's fighting, I say fighting, is probably homeless because he seems pretty unhinged, but he's a bigger guy. And the guy, he's got him in a headlock and he's saying, his friend off camera is saying, "Oh, he does jiu-jitsu. And the guy, he's got him in a headlock and he says, "I'm going to put him down and I'm going to let him go in 5 seconds, okay?" Just letting everyone know exactly what's happening. And the guy's trying to fight him and then in 3 seconds he's asleep. And he goes 2, 1, and he just lets him go. And the guy's like,
yeah.
But
he's a big black dude, yeah? Is that? Yeah, and he's like a black-haired white kid. Yeah, he's like 15 or something like that.
And he's just so in control.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to observe how that interaction is awful, but how healthy it is for that kid to be able to, one, do that and kind of neutralize that situation, shall we say, but to be that calm and to be able to behave in that manner.
Yeah.
Now, you say you've done martial arts for years.
Yeah.
I've just recently...
Jiu-jitsu for 9 years.
Wow. I've just recently started doing, I joined the UFC gym and I'm doing, a bunch of Muay Thai classes. That's the thing I've gravitated towards the most. I actually really want to do jiu-jitsu, but I've got disc problems in my neck and in my lower back.
Same. I've got a torn ACL and a torn meniscus at the moment.
From jiu-jitsu or just... Oh, really? You just power through it?
Yeah. You get resilient from it. You get used to it. And you learn to stay calm in those situations.
Yeah.
Right. Where my training partner is the number 2 black belt in the world. He's 23. He's a lot stronger than me. He's a lot faster than me. And he's sure as hell a lot better than me.
Right.
But that's who I only train with him. That's it. And so...
I think be the weakest one in the room.
Yeah, it's like if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
If I'm the best fighter in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah,
so he smashes me. And he doesn't go 100% on me. Like I go 100% on him.
Yeah.
And maybe if I'm having a really, really good day and he's had 8 1-hour sessions before that, I might get a little movement on him or I might choke him out here and there. But it's like, man, he's so good. And that's who I want to be better. That's not better than, but that's who I want to get better through. Because if I can hold myself against him, then some dude on the street that doesn't know what he's doing is going to be like a cakewalk. I'll be looking at my watch going, is this over yet? You know? So that's where it's a good level to go to.
Well, it's almost like too, holding that energy in that environment will probably, there's a good chance that will just make it not even eventuate.
Dissipate.
Yeah.
I had that happen. I was walking down the street with an ex-girlfriend 5 years ago, and this dude was like sort of blowing up, and it was just in the afternoon, and we were standing at the lights, and he was walking across the street, and I just got her and I just put her behind me, and I just stood there very calm, and he came up and he like pretended to hit me like that, and I just didn't flinch. He did it twice, and he came like this far away from my face. But I just didn't flinch, and I stood there, and then he sort of walked around and was yelling and shit, and I just left it. And my girlfriend at the time was like, fuck, it's just stayed so calm. What if he'd hit you? I'm like, it wasn't really a threat.
And
it wasn't really a threat.
That's from his perspective. That's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah.
If you start on someone and they just stand in stillness, that's pretty frightening.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just calm. And jiu-jitsu gave me that because I'm like, I know what to do here.
Yeah.
And if he does hit me or anything, I was more concerned with making sure she was okay.
Sure.
That's why I sort of just pushed her behind me a little bit, very gently.
Yeah.
And I was more like, okay, well, if this is the case, then I need to get him as far away from her as possible. So I can take a slap, like, or a punch or whatever. It's not really that big a deal. Most people don't know how to punch anyway. So he was sort of, probably late 40s or something like that. So he didn't look very threatening. He just looked out of control. And someone that's out of control like that is much easier to control when you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it would have just been like, grab him around the waist, take him down, get on top of him, choke him out and leave him there. That would have been it. So it would have been over in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not 5, but probably 20 to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I was more concerned with what exposure she would have if he had a weapon or something like that. So it was like, I can take a slap, and if he sees I'm non-reactive, that's not a good person to fuck around with.
No. That's a very powerful response. Just coming back to that, like the reality of it is that is part of being a man, being a male.
Yep.
And you live with that all the time.
Yep.
Obviously, there's very few, if you're lucky, there's very few situations where actual violence breaks out.
Yep.
And if you're smart, you avoid them.
Yep.
But it's there. And there's also like the thing that most men would not have that same attitude towards women. Most men who have enough honor and dignity, no matter how angry they are, would not be violent towards a woman. Now that's when they are. That's something that is very really disgusting to me.
It's bottom of the barrel stuff.
It is, isn't it?
Kids as well.
Yeah, essentially what it is, exactly, kids as well, or animals. Essentially what it is it's like, let's look at mixed martial arts. These are two people who are there voluntarily. They train for it, and they want to be part of it, and they are fighting.
Yeah.
That is a completely different thing to two people who, one of them, and sorry, the other thing is they're matched in weight.
Yeah.
So it's about skill and it's voluntary. Then they're completely different to someone who doesn't want to be in there or doesn't want to fight, who is physically weaker and is being dominated by someone else.
Yeah.
It's complete weakness.
Yeah.
It just comes from a place of, it's pathetic.
Yeah. And
it's so sad when you hear about these things happening. It's really fucked up about that's toxic masculinity.
That's like just being a bad human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if the woman was being violent back to the man, violence is still at play.
Yeah.
He might be weaker emotionally. So if we're looking at, just aspects of weakness as dominance, a lot of women dominate men and they're psychologically manipulative and abusive. That's as bad, in my opinion, as a man that dominates a woman physically.
Well, that's the tool.
These
These are the tools.
Yeah.
the male has the
weapons.
physical tools. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think it's kind of like I just sit there and go, it's just, it's so ridiculous that it can't even put like a emotional statement behind of it because it's beyond pathetic. Yeah. It just shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Well, but it speaks to what you were saying before about men being able to protect.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. It just is.
Should be able to protect too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a reason why there are male and female sports. Yeah. Because there's just physiological differences.
Careful. We're in the trans
I know.
movement,
Well, this
mate.
is
careful.
Exactly. I don't
it's
know.
absurd.
And it is absurd. Now, something that is interesting and I think is worth observing is that and maybe this is part of the hormonal thing we're talking about, is there definitely are males who are very feminine.
Yep.
And females who are very masculine. Yep. That's a real thing.
Yep.
Physically and also emotionally. But even still, that doesn't mean that their sex is not what it is. It's just a masculine female or a feminine male.
Most of the time when a woman's overly masculine, she's got a father wound, so the father won't have been around. And
so she's assuming that.
Yeah, because it's a protective mechanism. Is that it?
Hey, buddy.
It's my dog coming up. He needs some attention.
Yeah, give him a
cuddle. He's a bit needy.
He's a real savage too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Not a bad, aggressive atom in this dog's genetic makeup. He's the sweetest dog ever.
Look at him.
Yeah. And so if you look at that, so they'll adopt those characteristics to shield themselves from men. And that's what I was saying earlier, that the masculine woman will see a man leading as controlling. And then the same way with the boy, he will have grown up with too much feminine influence, so his father won't be around. So like I said earlier, having a masculine male role model is, all right, mate, get down. Having a masculine male role model that's healthy in the children's lives is not a determining factor in a child's health. It's the determining factor. And I need to make sure that I put a caveat that it's a healthy masculine male role model. But they do better even when they're just around. They do better, So, the guy that's been raised by a single mum with 3 sisters, it's going to be a rough ride for him because he's just going to become the environment. It's not that there's anything wrong with femininity or masculinity. They've got their expressions in their unhealed states and their mature states. So I'd say rather than toxic masculinity, that's more immature boy psychology.
And that makes sense because it hasn't had no matter how masculine perhaps his sisters or mother can try to be, he hasn't had a role model that is there to show him how to grow into it.
Yeah, it's
or to be it.
It's immature masculinity or immature femininity. That's kind of where I see it. And then the sort of shadow components start to play out in the form of conquering and domination and the tyrant, like Game of Thrones. Joffrey, who's the boy prince or the boy king, is the perfect example of immature masculine psychology. That's just this tyrant that wants to kill and they'll listen to me because I'm king. And it's and there's this good scene where Joffrey's they'll listen to me because I'm king. And Tywin Lannister, who's the patriarch, goes, anyone that has to say they're the king isn't the true king. Right? It's such a powerful line.
It's a great burn.
And he's just sort of skinning a deer, I think, at the time. He's like, yes, like this, whatever.
Yeah.
Because he's the real one that runs the show. The other guy, Joffrey's just sitting on the throne. So it's the immature psychology and the immature feminine psychology is going to be buying into that you're a goddess and you're this, you're that. That's quite immature, that stuff, because it's not grounded here on earth in reality. It's imagine if we walked around saying, hey, God, you're a god. We get fucking slammed for it. Yeah. But a lot of these women, it's you're a goddess or, I'm embodying my Durga or my Kali or, whatever it is. It's well, how about you just try to be a woman rather than a goddess? That's worship. That's expecting to be worshipped. That's narcissistic. That's grandiosity. And that needs to be pulled in check. We can talk about archetypes and all that other stuff. I see that as an immature aspect of femininity, because they're the ones that we need to be a matriarchal society and we're the queens and we do everything right. Slay girl, I'm a goddess, whatever it is. Goddess culture is super toxic. It's super toxic. And it's imagine if men walking around going, oh, I'm Apollo, I'm Zeus, I'm, whatever the other gods are. And it's like, we'd be laughed at. But there's a real epidemic of females in this space fully thinking that that is the, mature feminine. And it's not. I don't see it as that. I see it as a little bit delusional, actually.
So where's it come from? It's obviously there's the thing that you were describing to me. What was it? The
Frankfurt School.
Frankfurt School.
Yeah.
But also like there's look, there are times when there's been the oppression of women. There's situations where that's happened.
Yeah.
And so there's a distinction between that being real and everything else that is masculine being that.
Yeah.
So where's the point where the empowerment of women and femininity is on the right path and on the wrong path, in your opinion?
So it's a good question. So I think that C.S. Lewis said it the best. It said, all jobs exist to support the one most important role on the planet, which is mothers. And I agree with that. Women are the birthers.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
There's a good saying, which it's like, what is it? Women navigate unborn spirits from the spiritual realm to the physical realm. They're the portal. Like, how magic is that? We're disposable, man.
Yeah.
We're the ones that we put our bodies on our line to die to protect them.
Yeah.
Because that's the most important thing. If every woman embraced that, it would be a very different outcome to the way that society is structured, because relative to, these immature aspects, the real role I find for women is to be mothers. And we're the hunter-gatherers and the protectors. That's just in our biology. And so, the Frankfurt School's one thing, break up the family. And this is really my mission. Restore masculinity, not create masculinity, restore it. Restore masculinity, then you restore men. You restore masculinity, then you develop men. You restore men, you restore the desire to be a husband and a father. You restore husband and fatherhood, you restore marriage. You restore marriage, you restore family. You restore family, you restore connection to God, then you restore society. Because the other way, it doesn't work, and it hasn't worked, and it isn't working. That's the thing.
There's a reason why in this time that we're in, where we have more stuff and more access to resources and food and shelter and all of these physical living problems that we've solved, but yet we're the most mentally unwell that we've ever been in history, recorded history. People are taking their own lives.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to describe what's human behavior to an alien, and then you were to say, they'd be like, wait,
what?
They're killing themselves?
Yeah.
But there's so many other things that could kill them. But they're not, not able to find peace and joy in the fact that they have been given the gift of a human experience and being alive, that they are ending that themselves.
Yeah.
It's so dark.
Yeah.
And in no way am I trying to discredit people who are depressed. What I'm addressing is the fact that people are depressed.
Yeah.
Why? We're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We're unfulfilled. We aren't connected. And ironically, it seems to me as though the stuff that you're preaching and the stuff that you're talking about that is so triggering, especially to a lot of women, is actually coming from the same place that you're kind of arguing the same point.
Yeah.
But yet you are bringing up things that are hard to hear. So your actual message is not heard.
Yeah.
That's what it appears like.
Because it seems patriarchal.
Yeah.
That's why, like patriarchy, right? We don't live in a patriarchy. We don't, right? Patriarchy, what it's based on in the West, is an average number of about 1 million men. This is what they say, there's this patriarchy on the planet, right?
Right.
1 million men out of 8 billion people. That's 0.0000125%.
Right.
We don't live in a patriarchy. Yes, men run companies more so than women because they need to be competitive and aggressive and work for long, long, long hours and years to get to that point. Most women just don't have it in them to do that. It's not that women don't get the opportunity to do so. It's that they have to basically adopt masculine traits to get there. And most women aren't up for the task, and that's okay.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, I'm sure there are some people who would say that's not true. The society hasn't been set up for women to be able to have those opportunities.
Yeah.
But that may be true or not. But what I think is more important is to focus on is, do they want to?
Yeah.
Some might.
Men are naturally inclined to compete, to achieve.
I think that, yeah, there it is. There it is. And it doesn't mean that some women aren't, but typically men are naturally inclined to compete and to achieve. And women are naturally inclined to nurture and mother.
Naturally built for that.
Yeah.
They're naturally built for it. That's the thing. Their biology indicates that.
But their biology, and this is the thing where I think that perhaps there's discussion about this connection not being real, but their biology is connected to their emotional state and their behavioral state. It's one thing. And yes, again, there are different amounts of these needs and wants in each individual, but it's there.
Yep. Our nervous systems are denser than a woman's, so we don't feel as much.
Wow.
Right? Their blood flow is 8 times faster through their body, which means they're more open to feeling. It's biology. Most people think that just because I stand for men, the automatic byproduct must be that I hate women. I don't. I love women.
Yes.
I want to create healthy men to take care of our women.
That's what I get from you.
Yeah.
That's what I think is actually pretty easy to see, but I think that is misinterpreted a lot because you say stuff that hurts people's feelings.
Yeah. And so if we get all men that are just their feelings, run by feelings, they're going to be offended all the time. It's about restoring balance and equanimity because nature will always seek to balance harmony. And it will do that through eradicating anything that needs to be eradicated to restore harmony. And the most wounded part of nature is the human being. And so it needs to rebalance itself, and it doesn't rebalance itself by inverting its natural concepts. You know, this whole idea of things like pole shifts and climate change and all that sort of stuff. It's like we look at nature and it just balances itself out.
Yeah.
It does in our bodies. When there's a sickness, it will get rid of it through symptoms, and what's going to happen is there will be a return to balance through masculinity and femininity in their counterparts in order to merge to create life. That's the thing, like this ridiculous thing about men breastfeeding at the moment. It's mental illness. People that think that are mentally sick. I could sit here and make a joke about it and whatever, because I do think it's absolutely absurd. But these people are sick. They're mentally unwell. And the fact that we're, as a society, cowering to this, these are the people that preach tolerance. But if you say I don't tolerate you, they don't tolerate you. So their tolerance is one-sided.
This is one of the questions that I always have for this kind of thing is, how does this play out? Like, okay, so let's go down the road where men can breastfeed now and give birth. And so, okay, cool.
Yeah. Chest feeding, it's called.
Chest feed, yeah, of course.
Let's get politically correct.
Because imagine if a person's offended, then that's the end of the world. How does that play out? Where does this go?
Yeah.
What's the end? Or how does this equal order?
Yeah.
How does this settle
into
a healthy place? Because I can't see it. I'd love to hear some compelling arguments as to let's go down this road.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like there is any. It's just let's just do that. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what's in the future. Again, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, because it's all based on feelings. I feel like this now. Like when we were growing up, we're a similar age, right? If you'd said, "Hey, what do you want to be?" I would have been a fucking Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
Right.
And then right there, brother.
Yeah.
From when I was a little kid.
Yeah, sweet. Right. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, let's go and surgically modify you to put a shell on your back.
Yeah.
And tattoo a thing around your eyes, right? The blindfold around your eyes with the eyes cut out so you're a Ninja Turtle. And that's what's happening now. And so if we just honor these feelings all the time, nature's going to balance it out. It will. It always does. And the US collapsing is the fall of the Roman Empire all over again. Monk or marriage is born out of that. So there was Rome, the fall of Rome, then Holy Rome came in after that, which was monk or marriage. Men were monk or marriage. That's it. And that's the concept where I derived it from, where it was, that's where I'm at, monk or marriage, because I don't want to engage in the absurdity of such an opposition to the way that God has made us. You know, that's where there's a lot of atheism. You know, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist is a good book, because even if you don't believe in God, then you have to believe in something that isn't God, which there's no God, which is a stronger set of principles than believing in God. You know, people ask me about it and I say, the fact that we live in a world of rules and limits where we can create indicates that that ability to create has been defined by a creator. It's pretty simple. To me, it just makes sense. That's logical reasoning behind it. But in this, like if we're looking at it from the place of the trans movement and chest feeding, we don't have to go down that path. That'll sort itself out. That's an anomaly in nature. And nature sorts out the anomalies. It will correct itself. And I leave that up to a much bigger force that I'm a part of that I can't control. Every sort of major theme that comes up, if you notice, is always an invisible enemy. You can kind of go, oh yeah, it's sort of there, but I don't know, COVID, right? Oh, you're so sick, you might not know you have it. That's Munchausen syndrome. Well, I'm going to make someone think they're sick when they're not to keep them weak.
I know, that was a good one, eh?
Yeah, that was a cracker.
Yeah, you're
so sick you might not know you have it.
Yeah.
But you'll kill someone if you do pass it on, even if you don't have the symptoms. But here are the symptoms, so you got to wear a mask just in case.
I mean, it just doesn't pass the sniff test.
It doesn't. And so there's that. Then before that, what was it? It was terrorism. Arabs. Oh, okay, some are good, some are bad, invisible enemy. And now there's climate change. Yeah, you know what? It is getting hotter with all the cloud seeding and all the other shit that's going on. Yeah, it kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't. But I can't really define it by one specific thing. So, what's the next one going to be? Oh, probably aliens, an invisible threat. There's always an invisible threat that you can kind of say is real, that isn't real, that I can't fully quantify, but there's sort of evidence for it. There's conjecture, there's opinion, there's stats, there's evidence. I don't remember his name. Hunt, I think it was. Greg Hunt, I think he was the head of, like, the Minister for Health. He used to work for the WEF on the climate agenda, I think, and then he got done for falsifying statistics with the Bureau of Meteorology to push forward the climate change agenda. Like,
why are they connected? Like what?
They're all plants. They're all there for a reason.
Well,
right?
One of the things that
I think it was Greg Hunt. Might be some details that are inaccurate,
Sure.
and so just to preface, there might be little bits, but it was accurate. Like one of the politicians that was head of health and the COVID thing was the same as a WF guy for implementing the climate change strategy, and was found at the Bureau of Meteorology to be falsifying evidence to push that narrative forward.
What a fucking mess, man. What? Yeah, it makes me think of the psychological fact that people in a state of stress are much easier to manipulate.
You can program someone in 6 weeks if you have them in a state of fear.
Wow. And by program, how deeply are we talking? Like brainwash?
Yeah. Yeah. Programmed enough to buy into the narrative. That's why you don't watch the news. It's all fear.
Yeah.
And people talk about it. They're unconscious. I was having a chat with a mate about it with his family. They read the newspaper cover to cover, and then that's what they talk about with their friends that are very wealthy, because then they're in the know. That's garbage, that shit.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side, which are like the truthers, which are just as toxic. You know, there's one, I don't know the guy, Dave O'Neig's, but his channel on Telegram is so toxic. It's like there's a tiny little speck in the sky, chemtrails, like it's raining in Pakistan, floods, there's like a desert stripe, Book of Revelations. It's just live your fucking life.
There's no trust in anything.
No, it's just live life.
Yeah.
I was talking to my woman about this, and I call her my woman because I like that, right? Some people get triggered by it.
Sure.
And I'm like, whatever. But
let's talk about that. That's interesting, because there's nothing derogatory in what you've said.
No.
In fact, it's empowering.
Yeah.
She's a fully grown adult. It's not your chick. It's not my bitch. It's not my girl.
My hoe.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to her about this because she was looking at the Israel stuff and she was getting upset about it. And I said, babe, like, just try to snap out of it for a bit and not pay attention to it. It's obviously making you upset. What do you feel that you need to get out of it by focusing on it? There's, women with their legs broken and babies that are dead, just put it aside for a minute and try not to pay too much attention to it because it's having an effect on you.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I said it to her, I think actually, I said, let's just cut all this out so we don't need to focus on that. Let's just focus on us. Let's focus on
What's
developing
real.
what's real.
Yeah.
Let's just get a farm, make babies and fucking tap out.
Yeah.
It's like there's a divine hand in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, something that I always think about when we're referring to the news is why are the things that we are being shown the things that we are being shown? Why that? Why not this?
Yeah.
Why this crisis and not this crisis?
Yeah.
I mean, we can speculate, which is pretty accurately, but it's as soon as you start asking that question, why am I being told about this from a mainstream news channel, but yet I go on to Rumble, or something like that, and find a documentary that shows me pretty compelling evidence that is the complete contrary to what I've been told from the mainstream news channel. And then there's so many questions that come from that. And it can be very shattering to your worldview because it might mean that you are not taken care of the way that you thought you were by the world.
Yep.
But I would rather be in a place where I go, okay, at least I can start to make some more informed decisions about my life and my family's life and the people that I love instead of being lied to and misled.
Well, that's the thing. It's about leading, right? So if you look at news, it's NEWS. On a compass, it's northeast, southwest, and that directs you somewhere.
I've never thought
and if you look at because it's all based on maritime law that we live in at the moment. So there's a news anchor, and it's a broadcast, which is a spellcaster, right? So it's like there's all these little tendrils in there where you can kind of link things up. Now, when I saw the compass thing, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
It's same with the legal system.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah,
it's so much about maritime.
Well, there's lanes on a highway.
Yeah.
Right. It's a shipping lane.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's it's like an island in the traffic. It's a traffic island. Because it's based on lanes, shipping lanes, right? So it's all based in maritime law. I haven't gone far enough down it to really talk too much about it.
Yeah.
But from what I've gleaned from it, it's like, on the birth
There's a can of worms in that stuff, dude.
Yeah, it is.
I've gone down it probably as much as you have, and it is like...
Yeah, like Australia's a corporation registered in Delaware.
Is it in Delaware?
Yeah, it's in Delaware.
Fuck, dude. I've just been listening to this guy. His name's Brandon Joe Williams, and he's... Let's be honest, he's a fuckboy. That's the best way to put it. The way he talks about everything but the topic that he's versed in is pretty juvenile.
Yeah.
But he knows a lot about all this kind of stuff. And he was talking about how United States is a corporation based in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, Australia is too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The District of Columbus. And he said something about Australia. And so there's so much of me that's like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Hang on. I'm not ready to go down this rabbit hole. You know, who is this guy? I don't know if I trust him, all this kind of stuff. But there's also that part of me that's like, oh shit.
I need to know this.
I need to know this.
Yeah.
And he did mention Australia as well, and how there are a few, I think it's Canada as well. There's a few countries that are kind of run in this manner.
Yeah.
And it's not what it seems.
I had a friend ask me when I was talking to him about this, and it was when the jabs were coming out, and I'm like, mate, it's a sinister agenda, and I was pushing him on it, and he was like, man, why do you want to be so right about this? I'm like, that's the thing, I don't want to be right, but I'd rather you know about it and it be wrong than you not know about it and it be 100% accurate. I remember I posted on Instagram, I was like, this is the way it's going to go. When COVID first started, I was standing in my kitchen with a really close mate of mine, and I said, this is it, don't you? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, this is the beginning of the end. This is the start. Our life is never going back to normal after this. This is what's been told that's going to happen for a long time. And I posted on Instagram and I said, it's going to go lockdown, civil unrest, lockdown, interference with the US election, mandatory vaccinations, climate change than aliens, because they've written about this. I'm not some psychic. They've written about it. It's all to bring together a one world government, top-down control, and the linchpin in it will be the central bank digital currencies, which will tie everyone into a system.
Social credit system.
Social credit.
Yeah.
And I said all this, and then now everyone's like, oh, you were right. I'm like, yeah, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, but back then, you were a cunt.
Yeah. I am every day anyway to people online, so nothing's new.
Yeah,
I'm doing the right thing.
I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
I was kind of in a similar position. It's because there's nothing comforting about being right.
Yeah.
About that, because
I
it
don't wanna
means
be.
that, like, a lot of people. I didn't get the jab.
Yeah.
A lot of people that did have been fucked up by it. A lot of people.
Massively. And that's only now. Like, imagine another 5 or 6 years when that shit really gets into the system. And like,
that doesn't feel good to me. Like, how there's no winning in that.
No.
And I, at the time, we were pregnant when it was happening. So, like, we were prepping to deal with bringing a baby into the world. So I was just not in a place to speak out and be like, hey guys, has anyone paid attention to this? I feel like there's some shit going on.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't in a place to be able to prioritize enough energy into that. I was like, I got to prioritize my family and bringing in a little girl, bringing in a person into the world.
Yeah.
And part of me is a bit of ashamed for not being as honest and sharing the way I felt and the things that I knew to be true, which were true.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me is also like, I just had to take care of what was happening at home.
You saved yourself a lot of expended energy and for an unnecessary reason. I mean, I fell into it, man. I did. I was like, I got to start prepping. I got to start like figuring out an exit strategy. The world's going to end. There's going to be bodies on the street in a year or two. None of it happened. None of it happened. And maybe the CBDCs don't happen, you know, and maybe like the whole social credit thing happens maybe for a year and it's like, yeah, well, it didn't work. So that's it. Everything that's supposed to have happened while the big narratives are playing out, like there's something about like October 4th, the internet's going to go down. September, it's like Joe Biden's going to die on stage. Like, it's like none of it's happened. The world will continue.
Yes.
We're just like, we're so arrogant to think that we're fully in control of it. If you turn the television off and you don't listen to those truthers or, you know, the opposite, like traditionalists or whatever it is, your life's pretty good.
Yeah, it really is.
It's quite simple.
That's been the thing that was my true north throughout all of this, was to go, okay, what am I actually – see, I don't know. You know, it's a risk to take to go out and get vaccinated, and it was a risk to not get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And it was a big risk on either side because this was such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And for me, my true north was going, okay, what is going on in my actual life, the people around me, and what I observed was, apart from people wearing masks, there was not really any change.
Not a whole lot.
People that I knew, no one that I knew was sick and dying.
Yeah. People
that I knew were sick, but no one that I knew was dying. No one that I knew in my actual life had actually died. Everybody that I knew recovered, just like a bad cold. That happened to me.
Yeah.
So I just had to keep coming back to going, what's the right decision here and what seems to be true? Well, I just have to pay attention to the information that I'm actually getting in real life rather than the constant fear that was being forced down my throat, down our throats from the TV and the, you know, every mainstream source you could find.
Yeah.
And it turned out that was the right way to go. Now, I'm glad, but again, it doesn't feel good to know that loads and loads of people that I love, people that I don't know, have been fucked up by this.
Yeah, and it doesn't make me feel good either, but there's still personal choice in it all. You know, I did a post where I said, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship? There was a question in my stories, and there were about 40 answers on there that were saying, no jab, no vaccine, no vaccine. I only posted 4 or 5 because there's no point in just posting 50 slides with the same answer.
Yeah.
And a couple of people came back and said, oh, it's really sad that, you know, that's a thing of people, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, why? It was their choice to get vaccinated. And so now the people that aren't vaccinated are vilified for making the choice that they don't want to be with a vaccinated person. That's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was like, I wouldn't be with a vaccinated woman. I would never vaccinate my child either. And so that's what I want. And again, like I said earlier, with the modesty of a woman that's modest, I'm comfortable in my choice because I'm comfortable in who I am. And I'm not going to do that. And now when all these new like taking sides and drama and all that's still playing out, I don't want anything to do with that anymore.
No, me either.
It's just like, you know what? I just want to have a family, be a good dad, be the best man I can be, show up for the world, show up for my clients, show up for myself, show up for my woman, show up for my kids, show up for my brothers. I'm good. That's a good life for me.
Yeah.
I don't need to fight a war in Israel or fucking worry about an invisible enemy or worry about the next fucking election. It's all pantomime.
Yeah, it is.
And it's all bread and circus.
And it's not only what you're describing, that's not just a good life. That's kind of the key to a really fulfilled life.
100%.
Because how many people do we see that are conquering the world, being a movie star, rock star, politician, whatever, you know, whatever they are, on a super grand scale, that are not happy people?
They're not.
They're not in a good place. Now, not all of them. Some of them living the dream.
Yeah.
Cool. But a good chunk of these people that are living the dream are not in a good place.
No.
So what you've described is actually what I think to be a healthy amount of, I don't want to use the word burden, responsibility.
Yeah.
That is fulfilling and manageable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, or maybe just beyond manageable, but that's the point. That's the fun.
Yep.
That's the chase in it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about, he's asking me for help. We've had businesses together and I've said to him, you know, it's like, you got to find what you're really good at. You got to find what comes to you naturally and easily. You've got to find what you're passionate about. You've got to learn how to monetize it. You've got to figure out how to get an asymmetrical return on your time. Symmetrical investing is a big amount of money for a small return. Asymmetrical is a small amount for a big return. That's how I operate in this world. So, you know, I work 1 to 2 hours a day and I make more than $500,000 a year. Right. So I've got that. I do it in the mornings when I'm the sharpest. I don't work at night. The rest of the day I spend hanging out with my bros, with my woman, doing good things in the world, riding, walking with my dog, exercising, getting out into nature, doing something difficult, whatever that looks like. I got a very well balanced life, right? And so these are the things you have to look at. So I'm helping people. I've found what I'm good at. I've found what comes to me naturally. I'm on point. I'm on purpose. I make a lot of money. I'm very successful. I know who I am. I've transcended my childhood wounding. I'm emotionally intelligent. I'm serving people and adding to the world. That's a good life. And now, because it's asymmetrical, I can give time to my woman, to my children when they come along and not have to sacrifice anything for that. That's a fulfilling life.
I can't sit here and say that I know whether or not all of those things are accurate, but you certainly say it with a whole lot of conviction, which I'm certain some people will go, how arrogant, what a jerk.
Yeah.
But that's their... In my opinion, that's coming from their inadequacies, because either you're bullshitting or you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And that's why you're in a place to actually help, because otherwise you wouldn't have the response that you get from people, the positive, overwhelming positive response and the negative response.
Yeah.
Because people want to stay in their shit. I mean, you would know this more than anyone.
Yeah.
People want to stay where they are. And just one thing that I thought about, back to all the messy bickering stuff we were talking about, the irony about all that is that everybody wants the same thing. Yep. People just want to be safe and not scared and know that they are going to be okay.
And understood.
Yeah. But yet, by offering a different alternative that was threatening the alternative that was provided that majority of people were taking, and therefore we have to get rid of that.
Yeah.
But yet again, what's the core? The core is we all want to be safe and healthy.
Yeah.
And it's so coming back to, that's why when you were saying like I don't engage in any of this shit anymore, I completely agree, because what's the point? We're actually, even though people want to fight about it, what's the point in fighting? We're arguing the same point.
Yeah.
We actually want the same thing.
Correct.
We're just talking past each other.
Yeah.
And the life that you are living and that you are describing is always going to be more fulfilling than a life of bickering or fear.
Definitely.
And the funny thing is, it's grounded in things that are grounding. It's grounded in your day-to-day experiences with humans, animals, physical exercise, your body.
Yep.
Not something else that's going on in the world somewhere that may or may not even be real.
Yeah. And the biggest part is I could take a much easier path. I could talk about love and light and all this sort of stuff, but I take the hard path because that's what's right. I could take a way easier path. And I'd thought about it before. I could not speak out against feminism. I could not speak out against current agendas. I could not be a stand for men and just be a therapist. Like I said, taking the hard path is what's important. And when you take the hard path, you operate in integrity, right? The difficult part of my path was scrapping with people in comments, which I used to enjoy, right? But now I don't have time for it. I can't be bothered with it. But like I said, like a lot of people want to take the easy road. Like I said, I could talk just about relationships and secure attachment styles and something nice around men need to be romantic and loving, and it's all about love and understanding one another. My posts don't really go there, and they cop a lot of flack and a lot of reactions, but that's my path, and that's being true to my path, and I can't sway off that. So I can't live a life outside of truth. When I'm walking the hard path, it has to be everywhere because that's the honest path. And like I said, to go full circle, the truth hurts when you believe your own lies. And if I was lying in the world, I wouldn't be able to show up and do what I do, and I wouldn't be successful at it.
Dead on that, man. Like the fact that my question always when people have these issues about, you're saying that you could give the advice of, it's got to be loving. These are the surface things that you can do. Is always, why is that an issue? Well, the why means you have to expand, and perhaps that means you have to address something that's going on socially, or that's going on politically, or that's going. It's not a holistic solution, which, in my opinion, is really the only one that's an actual cure. Is always going to be complicated and messy. Yeah. And rather than let's just keep it in this tiny little container and we'll just fix the problems in here. It's like, oh, cool. Well, you might be able to fix the problems there, but there's still problems out here. Yeah. So you saying that I'm going to tell the truth and be open and honest about all of these things instead of being safe. Yeah, it's a bold call, but it is the way to fix the problems.
One of the most important things around when you're going to work with a coach, or a therapist or whatever, what are they presenting to the world? It's like earlier when we were talking here and you're like, you're promiscuous. I'm like, and for paraphrasing, no, let's call it what it is. I was a womanizer. I could easily, that's taking the hard path because that's the truth, versus going, okay, I slept around a little bit or sowed my wild oats, and dress it up and make it a bit more fancy. But I was like, no, I was a womanizer.
Yep. Own your shit.
Yeah. And when someone does that, that's where you're dealing with someone that's walked through it. I've been in abusive relationships. One of the things I speak out against is the whole pop psychology thing of my ex is a narcissist, because the people that say that have no fucking idea what a narcissist is, what qualifies a narcissist, the clinical diagnosis, the difference between narcissistic traits, narcissistic personality disorder, and malignant narcissism, and the difference between malignant narcissism, malignant borderline, and histrionic personality disorder, and why that manifests as a adaptation to CPTSD, and how to identify that. And so I think that the whole point of the pop psychology industry about my ex is a narcissist was developed by narcissists so they could camouflage themselves in a sea of abuse. And so I've been in a relationship with someone that had histrionic personality disorder, that was a malignant narcissist, that was malignant borderline, and it fucking pushed me to my edges. And I'm very psychologically capable. And she fucking almost got me. She almost broke me. And if I'd been less of a man, she would have broken me. And there's no pleasure in me saying that, but it's the truth. So she gave me the architecture within myself to understand what an abusive relationship is like. And I work with relationships. There's people online that are saying like, oh, if he stonewalls you, he's a narcissist. There's one account.
It's a big jump.
But it's not accurate. You know, just because he might have fucked you and left you and didn't call you after that, doesn't mean he's a narcissist. Everyone's a narcissist. Every ex is a narcissist these days. And it's humiliating when you have been, humiliating and isolating when you have been abused by someone with narcissistic personality disorder and people don't take you seriously. That's the same abuse they do to their victims as everyone else now does to victims of narcissistic abuse because of that narrative.
So what does an actual narcissist look like? Like it's pretty unhinged, right?
It is. They know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So there's neurosis and character disturbance. Neurosis is people will have it. I've got neurosis. Everyone does. It's like it might be low self-worth. It might be some doubt sometimes. It might be some intense shame we got to work through. Like you said earlier about not speaking out. You're ashamed that you didn't. That's just a neurosis. We get into that unconscious material through lining up the patterns, the programming, the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors, the results, and the repetitive experience. That's neurosis. Character disturbance are the people with these cluster B personality types like psychopath, narcissist, sociopath, histrionic, borderline, bipolar. These people have character disturbances in the way they think. Okay? These people do not think the same way you and I think. They have a deep inability to self-reference. They have a deep inability to be accountable. A narcissist is obsessed with their own specialness and grandiosity and maintaining that through what's called dominance hierarchy. So they seek control by any means necessary. Borderline has a deep fear and terrified of abandonment. Okay, so the narcissist is going to need to show aspects of grandiosity, believe in their own specialness, cruelty. What else is it? I'm losing it at the moment. I can't quite remember. I'll bring it up. It's on my phone.
Yeah.
Because I want everyone to understand this because it's very, very, very important.
It's a true lack of empathy for anyone but themselves.
It is, correct.
As well, right?
So narcissists have to display 6 of these 9 traits across multiple contexts, multiple years, and multiple relationships, verifiably so. So number 1 is excessive need for admiration.
Yep.
Number 2 is bullying or exploitative interpersonal style. Number 3 is vindictive. Number 4 is entitled. Number 5 is to believe in their own specialness. Number 6 is extremely envious. Number 7 is obsessed with a fantasy-based version of themselves. Number 8 is lacking in empathy through the method of cruelty. And number 9 is massive arrogance.
Yeah, well, you rattle those off, and I can definitely observe times in my life where I have exhibited every single one of those traits.
Yeah.
But I hope like hell it's not for very long.
So if we look at that, right, the difference between it is that you wouldn't be able to recognize that if you were a narcissist.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right.
You just think that that's a good thing.
Oh, so there's no accountability. There's no personal
accountability. Right. There's also other methods of the malignant narcissist, which is idealize, devalue, discard, and hoover. So they build you up, tear you down, get rid of you, pull you back in. This creates a trauma bond. This is how they trauma bond the person to them. And so the idealize, serotonin, dopamine, feel good chemicals, devalue, fear, adrenaline, cortisol, right? Separation through discard, fear, that's adrenaline that's going to be released in stress hormones. Intense reconciliation through sex, that's oxytocin and dopamine. That's the most powerful chemical bond you're going to get. And then you become addicted to them and they create instability. Wow. Keep building you up, tearing you down, getting rid of you. Build you up, tear you down, get rid of you.
So, wow, this is so fascinating, man. So how consciously aware are these?
They know.
They know the process.
They 100% know.
And do you reckon it's just something that they just unfortunately have as a skill? Like they just know how to do it?
They do it because what they want to do is they want to break the programming of the individual. This is a process called mortification, where they want to kill the programming of the person to install their own programming with their voice in the other person's head so they can use the puppet strings to control them. They only want control. For the people out there listening that have actually suffered from it, they don't love you. They will never love you. They have one objective in mind, that is to break you, to control you. That's it. Nothing else. And the way through it, it is dark. It's very dark. And the way through it is, firstly, you have to kill the shared fantasy. This is why also in the pop psychology industry, where it's like everyone's got narcissistic traits. Everyone's a narcissist. That's another tactic by the narcissist to hide in plain sight.
Sure.
You don't. Like, I might have believed when I'm doing this work and I'm cracking people open from these deep traumas.
Fuck, I'm good.
Fuck, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? I win something. Fuck, I'm good. You know, men, we're less empathic, right? So, there's the lack of empathy, right? They believe in their own specialness. Like, I can do this. Yeah, I'm going to go after it. I can do it. You could attribute that to almost any person on the planet. But they have to be displayed across multiple contexts, within multiple relationships for multiple years.
Yeah. So this is a legitimate...
that's a clinical diagnosis.
Clinical diagnosis, yeah. This is not something to just throw around willy-nilly.
No, it's not. And so they engage in that. And so when the narcissist is threatened with being confronted or exposed, they go into a narcissistic rage and they'll get rid of you because you push on the narcissistic injury, which is complete fragility.
Wow.
Right? So these are the aspects people don't talk about because they don't know.
So you can find the weakness and you can just...
If you find the weakness in them, they'll get rid of you and try to get rid of you and then try to pull you back in through hoovering. And then when they hoover you back in, they'll say everything you want to hear. I want to marry you and have a baby with you. I want to get rid of my ex that's not in the picture. They also engage in what's called triangulation. So they play people off against each other that don't really have access to each other. This is their locus of control. They use another tactic of flying monkeys where they might get people to go and do their dirty work to get you back. You know, I've seen this. Yeah, it's hyper manipulative and they fucking know what they're doing. Don't for a second think that it's just, you know, I was working with another guy yesterday who'd broken up with his girlfriend 9 months ago who was like malignant narcissist. And he was like, I know it's just a part of me that like, you know, I brought her in to reflect this part of me that I need to heal. The one thing you have to do, the first thing is to kill the fantasy. The fantasy that they are who you think that you want them to be, not who they truly are.
Right.
And I was talking to him and he's like, you know, I can't seem to kill the shared fantasy. I'm like, because you think that you're the same as her. That's the fantasy and you're not. That's why you can't kill it because that's not reality. And he's like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, she's made you think you're the problem. Okay, you're not the problem. Her lies and her behavior is the problem. And then because of the pop psychology industry, oh, we're all a reflection of each other. We're all the same. We're all one. He thinks that maybe he's the narcissist and that's her voice in his head. That's mortification in its entirety.
Wow, it's a wonderful camouflage, isn't it?
They're empty. They're empty and not in the masculine way of being empty of feeling. They're empty, almost like soulless constructs. And so they just mirror you. And this is why the narcissist, it'll be like, wow, like she knew me better than anyone's ever known me. That's because they're copying you.
Yeah. It's not genuine.
They're master manipulators.
So how common is this? It's got to be.
It's not.
It's not.
No, it's not. It's super rare that someone's actually a disordered narcissist.
Yeah, because what you're describing is someone who is void of what typically are natural human traits.
Yeah, so we're sitting here having a conversation and we can understand through vulnerability, honesty, integrity, this is who I was, this is what's happened, you being ashamed with not, say, standing up because you had to manage your family, me saying, no, I was a womanizer, let's get it right. This is normal conversation, but we can understand that within each other. A narcissist, people go crazy trying to understand them because they think from the normal perspective of neurosis as opposed to character disturbance. Character disturbance means they think completely differently, so you can never understand them. That's why they copy you. Yeah, it's just lies. But it's also their one intention is to dominate, to get power over you. And a normal person is like, well, I just want to love you. I want to be with you.
Yeah,
I love you.
I trust you.
I trust you, yeah.
You say
I care
something
about you.
and I listen and I trust it.
And I've been through one of those and it's absolute hell. And it's like, it would break most men.
It sounds like it'd break anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, two questions. Where does this come from? Is this born, are you born into this or is this damaged into you? And can it be healed?
Look, the origin of it, I just see it as an adaptation to complex PTSD. So severe trauma.
Okay.
So they think differently. There's a brain issue. There's a wiring issue that's wrong. I think it could be healed, but the difficult part is the narcissist is never going to sit there and go, I'm a narcissist. When someone's sitting there considering that they're a narcissist because a narcissist has told them that, you're not a narcissist. Right, that's the programming of the narcissist making them think that.
So a narcissist, a genuine narcissist, will not entertain the fact that they may be a narcissist. They cannot.
Never. Well, no, I shouldn't say never. It's not that it's not possible, because it is, but the underlying CPTSD needs to be addressed before. The narcissism is an adaptation.
Sure, it's a symptom.
Yeah, it's a behavioral adaptation. It's a coping mechanism. Right. So when we separate that, then the brain, like borderline personality disorder, can be healed with dialectical behavior therapy.
What's the difference?
It's like a reprogramming thing. So the difference between borderline and narcissism is the grandiosity. They maintain that I am so special. But the borderline has the fear of abandonment, terrified of abandonment. That's the difference between the two.
Oh, wow.
So the borderline can be healed through reprogramming, right? The narcissist, it's a bit more difficult because they're not able to self-reference that they're the problem. Everyone else is the problem.
So basically one of them is a introverted version and one of them is an extroverted version of a similar thing.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I never thought about it like that. But there's also slightly different tactics to it. So the borderline is going to be highly dysregulated emotionally and go into emotional flashbacks. Narcissist will only go into a narcissistic rage when you push on the wound. And they'll be more likely to get rid of you. Way more.
And that's what they're craving, control.
That's the only thing that they want.
Fuck, that's really scary.
Yeah. Our world is run by them.
Yes.
They only want power over other people.
Yeah, wow.
And also the other thing which I hear, which is fucking ridiculous, is that codependents are covert narcissists. Right?
Okay.
I'm always like, motherfucker, all narcissists are covert.
Right. Yeah.
Codependents
it's not gonna work.
aren't. Yeah. Codependents can be quite loving, quite sweet. They just want to be loved. They're very giving. It's a completely opposite side of the spectrum. And now it's like, overt narcissists. There are no fucking overt narcissists. Right. No one's sitting there going, I'm a narc.
Yeah.
They're not doing that. They'll wrap themselves up as politicians, as CEOs, as, fucking tantric coaches.
Yeah, because it doesn't work in society with people who...
No one's going to go near you.
No, that's right. It'll be regulated.
Yeah.
People will weed you out.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is interesting. Just recently, I was in Noosa and with some friends for a wedding. We went to catch up with them the next day, and there was this guy sitting at the table with them. And I just presumed he was a wedding guest because, it's a wedding. There's lots of people there. So I shook his hand, and then I was talking to my buddy who was the groom, and I was like, who's this guy? And he goes, I don't know. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, he's just a stray. Like one of the girls, we were down at the beach and they just met him and he wanted to come for a walk and now he's here. And so I started talking to this guy and it was very disturbing. He just kept lying. I was like, hey man, and my wife did the same. She's like, so who are you? How do you, what are you doing sitting here with us, with the people who know each other? And, who are you? And he's like, well, my name's Jasper, I'm from planet Earth, and just started saying all this shit. And then he had a cut on his eye, which clearly someone's punched him. Yeah. And I asked him, so how'd you get that? And he was like, a week ago I was in Western Australia and I was on a jet ski and the jet, and this whole broke my nose a week ago. I was like, okay, well, you didn't break your nose a week ago because you've got no bruising on your nose or anything. And it was really odd because he was quite handsome, well put together. And he was fucking massive. Yeah. When he got up, he was probably 6'7". Yeah. And it was very disturbing. The more it went on, the more I realized I can't even have a conversation with you because it's just all lies. And I was trying to catch him on things. And I don't know what the go was with this dude. Yeah. But pretty quickly we're just like, you know what? Let's just go. Yeah. Because I'm not comfortable around this guy. Yeah. And I don't know what his psychological state was, whether he was just real life trolling or whether he was schizophrenic or I don't know what it was. Yeah. But it was very uncomfortable. Yeah.
The thing is with them is they're going to be narcissists and people like that. They're going to be pathological liars. But just if someone's a compulsive or pathological liar doesn't mean they're a narcissist. It's just a part of their toolkit. They're fully malleable. Like they just develop however they need to stand in the world to get by because they're chameleons, they're tricksters. And they just wear mask after mask after mask. And so they do this through replication where they just replicate whoever they're with. And all of a sudden their interests become your interests. And then they want to do what you do for work. And then they're like, yeah, I can do this. And that's what they do. They're chameleons.
So what's the distinction between narcissist and like a sociopath or psychopath?
Yeah, so the psychopath is usually very charming and they all sort of sit on the same thing. There's a dark triad, which is psychopathy, narcissism, and I can't remember the other one right now. And so they're all fairly similar. They've got different traits. So the psychopath, zero empathy at all.
Right.
Will just like kill someone and be like, okay.
They just don't feel it.
Don't feel it. That's antisocial personality disorder. They're very cruel. Cruelty is the main thing for them.
So do they enjoy it, or do they just not feel the negative?
It's hard to say if they enjoy it because I don't know what enjoyment is to them because I can't live in their body, so I can't really say it.
Comes back to what we're talking about, men trying to treat women as if they feel the way that we feel.
Yeah.
Trying to think the way a psychopath feels.
Like how I can't really go there. It's only like from an intellectual pursuit.
Yeah.
But what feels good to them is probably not going to feel good to us. Like hurting, wounding, controlling, domineering, and being cruel to someone to feel powerful, that feels good to them. That doesn't feel good to me. So I don't know what their definition of enjoyment is, but I know the behaviors that they display are very disturbing. Sociopath is going to be explosive bouts of rage and anger, right? And narcissist is what we've already discussed. So, this is from a diagnostic aspect, and I'm not qualified to diagnose, just for people out there. But they're all adaptations to something deeper. So I don't really buy too much into the labeling thing,
Yeah.
My sister does that and she buys into labels all the time, and it's just a bullshit excuse. She's, the empath is a big one. Like people go, I'm an empath. I'm like, no, you have a dysregulated nervous system. You can't feel other people's pain. You might sense that they're in pain, but there's very few people on this planet that are actual empaths. You look at the empaths, they're going to be very dysregulated. It's bullshit. Or my sister said she's a HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. I'm like, you have chronic dysregulation of your nervous system because you're traumatized and you don't feel safe. That's about it. These labels of like specialness, which is like, I believe in my own specialness. Oh, I'm an INFJ or I'm a ENPQ or whatever it is on the Myers-Briggs test. Like these definitions to try to make people feel special or some individual is something that's reinforcing that all the time. And it's like, I just keep bringing it back to being simple. Just get good at being a man. Become good at being a woman. I don't know what that's about, so I'm not going to comment on what it takes to be a woman. I'll let the women do that. But there's a lot of women telling men how to be men when they're not qualified to do so, just as I'm not qualified to diagnose a psychopath. But I understand the cluster B personality types through research, not through necessarily direct experience with psychopaths. I've encountered sociopaths based on the diagnostic manual, and definitely been exposed to narcissist and borderline and the malignant cases of that, which I wish I hadn't, but that was part of my life experience. But it's, these labels can be very limiting, and people that say they have ADHD brains, they're often just an excuse for women that are borderline as well. Men can go borderline too, but it's a little bit less. Men are more traditionally thought to be narcissistic than women, but they're not. It's a pretty even balance of 50-50.
It's pretty fascinating though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the mental disorders.
Yeah.
There's something that's really intriguing.
Yeah.
I go down these YouTube rabbit holes of watching. There's a channel called JCS, Criminal Psychology, and this guy breaks down interrogation footage of these people, and some of them are.
That would be good to watch.
I'll
get into that.
It's amazing. I'll send you a link to it.
Cool.
There's some of them that are incredible, and these are people who are being interviewed hours after they've murdered multiple people.
Yeah.
And just observing the way they behave. That was why when you came in here, I said to you, you can sit with your closer to the door and I'll sit over here, because one thing I learned from that is the interrogators always will sit with the person they're interrogating with their back to the wall so they can't get out emotionally.
Yeah.
So they're blocking their exit. So it immediately, without them knowing, puts them in a place of
caged.
Yeah. I don't want to do that to you.
Back's against the wall.
Yeah, that's it. But there's all these tricks that the detectives do because they have to in order to break these psychopaths.
Yeah.
Because they can't treat them like a normal person.
Yeah, because they're not.
They're not, which is really frightening, but also super intriguing to me, obviously to you as well, because it's...
The more you can understand, the easier your life becomes, because then you're not operating unconsciously or in blind spots all the time. So I wanted to understand, why am I the way I am?
Yes.
And so that's really like crystallized my work. So I want to understand, why is society like this? Why is this happening? Because if I understand it, I can understand them. And everyone just wants to be understood. That's it. One of the greatest gifts you can give anyone is just to understand them or try to understand them. And that's through listening, because listening is hearing with intent. Most people are just too busy waiting for their turn to talk.
Yeah. That's funny you say that, because hosting a podcast and doing these kind of conversations, I notice moments of that in myself where I'm going, I think of something to say and I battle with, oh, this is going to be really interesting. I need to say this. Hurry up. And, oh, hang on. He's actually telling me something that I should be absorbing. And maybe that's more interesting than the thing that I need to say.
Yeah.
So it's a funny little battle. We're in like a microcosm of that right now. In this.
Over time, you get to like, I will put things to the side.
Yeah.
And I'll listen and I'll hear what you're saying and taking it in. And then I'll be like, patriarchy.
Yeah.
Patriarchy.
Is there?
Yeah, like that. Like talking, because I wanted to talk about the stats in patriarchy, and you're in a point, and I was like, patriarchy. And I'm still listening. And then I responded to your point and then referenced back to the patriarchy statistics.
Yeah. It's a skill to be able to go, keep it on the back burner. And if there's another spot to put it in.
Yeah. And when you learn to listen, you get really good recall.
Yeah.
Because I'm not waiting to prove you wrong or waiting for my turn to talk or to jump over you. I'm just listening. And when I'm listening, I'm empty. And then if I just put something here, I literally just get out of my own way and I'm like, leave the patriarchy thing there. And then I'm engaged. And then I'll just every 3 or 4 seconds just go patriarchy in my mind. So then 3 or 4 times I won't forget it.
Yeah.
And then I'll circle back to it.
Yeah. You know, and it's podcasts in general. You talking about how everyone just wants to be understood.
Yeah.
I think these things are so wonderful. I'm so stoked that podcasts are a real thing, because it's a great way to do that, to feel, obviously doing a podcast is a deeper version of that, but even just listening to people having a real discussion for a long period of time. Like we've just met, but man, I've gone deeper with you than I have with a lot of my friends.
Yeah.
You know, because when do we sit down and do this?
Yeah.
You know, there's no distractions. It's just two blokes talking about stuff and just kind of navigating problems and figuring things out. This is cool, man. This is a fulfilling experience. It's fulfilling to listen to, and it's I'm figuring out ways to understand myself as I'm trying to understand you, and vice versa. It's one of the really healthy things in that exists in the state of a lot of really unhealthy ways to consume media, I think.
Yeah. So a really important thing you said, I'm trying to understand you and I'm trying to understand myself. Podcasts are great because the person is opposite you're trying to understand one another.
Yeah.
Take that to your personal life. Your personal life will change overnight.
Yeah. Well, you're right, man, because when I do these, I go, it's something that I need to practice.
Yeah.
I need to practice listening in my life if I'm going to do this well.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where I switch on and go, oh, hang on. No, listen. Be eloquent. Listen to what's happening in the conversation and be present.
Yeah.
You know, be open, be honest. And it leaks into my life. So
you become a better communicator. You know, it's like I do adopt traits like that when I'm in the need to understand someone. I'll switch into therapist mode. If it's for my woman, if it's for a friend, I will do that. And that's what I'm a master at. But like sometimes, like I'm like, you fucking piss me off. You know, it's like
still being a
human. Yeah, still being a human, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that. But it's a real gift that you
kind
can
of
give
important.
someone. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
you know, but when you're seeking to understand someone, especially if it's your woman, you will only get better in your relationship and your relating skills. Now, you have to have a woman that's willing to meet you there too. If you've got a partner, whether it's a man or a woman, that does have one of those personality disorders, it's not really going to get anywhere.
So how do you see that? Like I know you said I'm the guy who sees everything and you missed it.
Yeah.
So it's obviously hard.
It's very difficult, but you know, it's easy for us to sit here and try to understand each other. It's not so easy when you're in an intimate personal relationship because it pushes on all the wounds from childhood. And so you get triggered, you get upset, you get frustrated. So you have to become a master at managing that. Now, relative to relationships, if you're in that with someone, you have to look at their behavior, not what they say. And it took me a while to identify the behavior because quite simply, I didn't know about it. But she taught me all of that, not because she sat down and gave it to me, because my own fucking destabilization in the relationship forced me to go, what the fuck is this? And when I saw it, it was very difficult to face. But I had to go, motherfucker, look at yourself.
Yeah.
Stop believing her words. And so it was like I didn't want to believe that was it, but I didn't have that on my radar because she made me think I was the problem. And so if I sat down with her and I said, I really don't like the way that this situation's been handled in that tone, she'd be like, you're full of rage, you're so angry and blah, 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 because I'd be pushing on a wound that she'd done something wrong. And that would hit on the narcissistic injury, and then she'd break up with me. And then I'm like, whoa, fuck, like how did that happen? All I said was, I don't like how you did something. And so then it's about me being the problem. Then I want to avoid that because the pain of the separation is too great because I'm addicted to her and I don't want to feel that intense separation. And then she does that to come back around and lure me back in with sex that I become addicted to. So I get the oxytocin based on the reconciliation. So my makeup sex is so good. And so there's intense separation, intense reconciliation. And that keeps in a cycle where you're so busy trying to survive to avoid that. You don't really have time to look at whether this person's a malignant narcissist or, antisocial personality disorder or histrionic or anything like that. So it took a little while where there was constant breakups. And then I said, if you do it again, I'm out. And then I ended it. And that's where I saw it after that. And then she tried to come back and lure me back in, but it didn't work.
So it's almost as though your rational, logical brain is offline because it's like an addiction, right? Like a chemical addiction.
It is an addiction. That's why you hear some people go, they're like a drug. And she was my initiation. She was my test.
Wow.
She was a motherfucker, man.
She got you.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
Almost. Because I grew up in a very abusive household.
Right.
And I was literally thanking God that I grew up like that because had I not been, that was my training ground. And one of my exes was my proving ground. And I went through it and she had a history of broken men and I was the only one she couldn't break. She almost did though.
Wow.
Yeah, she almost did. And only because I'd had such a high tolerance to it and what I did in the world and who I was and the way that I face things. But man, it was close.
What a lesson coming out of that. I mean, that would have been quite a painful.
It was the lesson.
Yeah, putting back together of yourself
would
have been quite uncomfortable after that.
It was completely dismantling anything that wasn't me.
Yeah, which is hard work because you want to hang on to these things. You know, our personality traits.
Yeah.
So you desperately want to hang on to them because it's giving them up is. Well, the unknown, which is unsafe.
Yeah.
Not as safe as what you know.
Correct. And it's like when you slip back into things, familiar is what's known and what's known is safe because it's predictable and produces certainty. So to the ego, that's going to be like, yep, let's go. But when you're living from the soul, uncertainty inspires magic. It's like anything magical could happen.
Yeah.
And it's like someone was with the same guy when I was talking about going on Hinge or Cringe, sorry. I didn't want to do that. And I said, God will give me the woman that I want in whatever way it is, and I'll know when it happens. And I did. And it's like, I trust that. I trust it implicitly because I've got evidence in my history that 100% of the time things have worked out for me. Even if at the time I'd thought that isn't what I want to go through. I didn't want to go through a narcissistically abusive relationship. I didn't want to go and face the fact that, wow, I actually let this woman treat me like absolute shit. And she got away with more. Like one thing that one of my exes would have done that she did, I would have gotten rid of him in a second. But I put up with heaps because I was addicted. And I can sit here with no shame and say, no, I was addicted. And I'm sure every man on here could sit there and say, at some point I was addicted to the sex with one woman that was very powerful. It was like a drug. Fortunately, I was able to see it and then make different choices. And that was because of what I'd done in the world. I feel for the men that have not been able to do that though. This is why I want to produce better men and restore masculinity because they won't be pleasure-driven to be addicted to sex with women like that. And vice versa, women to the men too that get addicted to that sort of stuff too. This isn't a one-way street where I'm trying to vilify women for this. It goes both ways just for the listeners.
Yeah.
And so but you create strong, solid men, society fixes itself. And then women can relax. And like I said, we restore family, children, whatever it needs to be, society becomes better.
It seems as though a great way to fuck up a kid is to not have dad around, and that's a lot more common than not having mum around.
Yeah, I mean,
So
women
that-
get most of the custody most of the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I also mean if there's a place to start, it's like start with dad, start with men.
yeah,
You know, and that's what we are.
yeah,
So as you said before, that's what we know. So that's probably I don't know why people want to shit on you for starting there and for talking to that. I mean, Jordan Peterson's copped the same thing for talking to men.
yeah,
And I heard him talking recently. He was saying how, like, why should I be ashamed of that?
Mm.
Who is helping them out?
yeah,
You know, it's dudes like you
yeah.
that are trying to speak to that, that
Yeah.
are speaking to that.
Because I want to raise a world. I want to create a world, or at least be assisting in creating a world where our daughters are raised to feel safe and men are able to protect. And they're good men, you know what I mean? That are good. It's like to raise, what we need to create is the blueprint to raise solid boys into good husbands to protect our daughters.
That's beautiful, man. That's a big thing on my radar at the moment, having a little girl. And I've said this many times, as soon as she's old enough to get into jiu-jitsu, I'm going to get her into the jiu-jitsu because I want her to be able to handle herself if some boy decides to put his hands on her or get too handsy with her. I want her to be able to threaten to, if not break his arm and be like, not okay.
Yeah.
But what I want even more is for that to not
Ever happen, yeah. Yeah. Best defense is to not be there.
That's it, man.
That was jiu-jitsu taught me how not to fight.
Yeah. Beautiful. I don't know how long we've talked for, but
Long enough.
long enough, brother. This has been
Long
great.
enough.
Thank you, man. It's been a real treat. So I appreciate you coming up and having a chat, and I'll make sure people know where to find you and can either get triggered or love your work or all of the above. You know, it's all good stuff.
Cool, man. I appreciate you and respect you a lot what you're doing. Thanks, brother. Really
Cheers,
enjoyed
man.
it.
Cheers.
Thanks, man.